Alrighty. Let's get that there. Pull this here. There we go. Hello. Welcome to the stream. Hi. Hopefully you are all doing well this evening. I need some background music. What do I want to listen to? Sure, I'll do it for the moment. Doesn't do crazy. Hello, welcome. Oh my goodness, I apologize for being, what, 2 hours late almost, from when I had hoped to start the stream. We had a pretty big, ugly thunderstorm, last night, which resulted in a fair amount of just random delays in my day. So like when I went to go get dinner, normally I call in before I leave so that it's ready by the time I get there, but their phone lines had gotten taken down, so I had to go in person and then wait for them to make the food, which obviously added quite a bit of time. And I also there we go. I also had took Sadie on a big walk today to get her daily exercise, but a bunch of trees had collapsed in the forest. So we had to try and get around all the debris and stuff, which was a whole thing. So just, it wasn't like, nothing in my house was damaged, so to speak, but a lot of things that I needed to like get by was really messed up. But hopefully you're all doing well. So this stream, something I've been wanting to try, and something that I'm hoping I'm going to be doing on a regular going forward, is that I really want to try being better about having streams that we can do on a similar regular basis that are different. Like there's something unique, instead of just doing like Total War, Final Fantasy and stuff all the time. Being able to come on and talk about certain kinds of topics is kind of the main thing, because I really enjoy when I get to sort of ramble and rant about certain ideas and focuses and concepts and stuff like that, but I don't get to do that as often as I would like, and that's my fault, because I tend to just be like, oh, I gotta play a video game, when something that I think I've been learning more and more from my VTuber friends is that, well, no, they have their whole concept of I think they called them Zatsudan streams, where it's like you just chat and you just have a good time. And I want to try doing more of that. Also, I'm gonna adjust my stuff here just a smidge, so I'm trying to make my hair a little less invisible. Let's see if that looks better. Man, I'm trying to decide if, so I've got a lot of big recording stuff coming up soon. There's a lot of big videos I'm really wanting to record and talk about and do, but I'm not super thrilled with how my mic sounds at the moment when it comes to like long period talk streams. I feel like the quality is not what I want it to be. Like, I have a really expensive, super nice microphone hooked up to a really nice, super expensive system. But I think because this room is so big and the wall is like right there, when I talk, it just bounces back too much. So I think that I'm tempted. I found out, I don't know why I didn't look this up until just now, but I found out that apparently the you can buy or even just make super simple but effective like little recording booths really easily. You know, I could go get some like PVC pipe and a bunch of blankets and then put like soundboarding, which I have some soundboarding, but it's not great. Because like I hate listening to myself talk. And not in the sense that like I hate my own voice, even though I do a little bit. But it's like I feel like when I try, especially when I'm using Audacity, and I don't know if it's a problem because of my Audacity program, and if it is, I'm not sure how to fix it. But I feel like when I record on Audacity, it sounds weird. Like it just sounds super duper off. Like it's not background noise per se, but like it's not just my voice. You know, instead of like if you go listen to a lot of lore channels, right? Like Luton or Vati Vidya or like any of these other big lore channels, their voices are so crisp, right? Like the quality is so good. And mine does not sound like that. I was like when the Koresh guy. Oh, hey, 47 KKR's in the chat. Nice, good to see you, dude. Thanks for coming by. But when the Koresh team sent out like, oh, we're doing auditions for like audio stuff, I was like, oh, that could be fun. Like, I'd love to try an audition and get like a little part where I'm vaguely somewhere in it, like yelling in the background or whatever. But I listened to my stuff and I was like, oh god, this is terrible. It's terrible. It's terrible. it's awful. So anyway, frustrations of what I do. And I also need to rearrange this room anyway. I've done a pretty good job moving most of my books out. I've still got I got half of my books off the shelf. And because I didn't realize how many I had, and I'm worried about collapsing the desk that I've been putting them all on. So I need to get another desk to finish it. But once I get all my books out of here, I can repair my bookshelf. Because, fun fact, I have so many damn Warhammer Fantasy books that part of my shelf, it has like X bars on the sides. And one of the ones I was trying to fit some more books in, and the sidebar exploded outwards. so it was like, oh, so I need to repair it. That way I can do some more stuff with it. But I want to move this desk to the center of my office room instead of being right here. Because here I'm against a wall, which I don't like. I want to move to the center of the room. That way I can have an L-shaped desk or like a U-shaped desk. Because right now I just have a little 6-foot desk in front of me. And holy shit, it is not enough. I don't have nearly enough space, and the whole thing's an absolute mess. But anyway, so, Yo Tom, thank you for the bits. Really appreciate it. Thank you. Oh. No. I have Sovel? I don't remember what Sovel is. Christopher, thank you so much for the 14 months membership on YouTube. Oh, sorry, that reminds me. A couple of quick things before I really get into rambling, and talking about today's topic, because like so a couple of really quick things. If you haven't seen it yet, I have put my schedule up for this week, a tentative schedule, on my Twitter, and it's also on the Discord. In fact, I can, hold on, let me bring it up on stream and not be lazy. Let's do it this way. How are y'all, by the way? Hopefully everyone's doing okay. I think I put it in... What file did I put that in? Under. Is this the most recent one? Nope. That one's old. Well, shoot. Okay, hold on. That one's old. Ignore that. We want this one. Oh, I just realized y'all couldn't hear the audio. Y'all just been sitting in silence. My bad. I was just listening to. It's already in use. Oh, it's not. Oh, yes, it is.
Yotam9 shared. X100. Sovl is the definitely not Warhammer Fantasy tabletop roguelite game I recommended to you in a previous stream.
Oh, no, I haven't tried it yet. But I did hear some good things about it.
One shared. X100. Hashat Vorgans Harnagrund.
All right, so here's the schedule for this coming week. You're probably not even gonna be able to read it. The text is so goddamn small, but that's my fault because it's a little crowded. As you can see, we've already fucked it up several times this week, but that's okay. We're doing our best. Is this Valheim? No. This is Breath of the Wild. So we have tonight. We're gonna be doing like old world type discussions. I'm gonna be talking about some of the lore stuff that's gotten my attention. And I think is gonna be kind of interesting. We also tomorrow have Lorebeards, because it's Wednesday. So we are on this week, 4 p.m. CST, 10 p.m. BST. And we are also going to, of course, we're going to be building an Everchosen. So we're going to be doing another Build-A-Bear stream. So far, we've built, what all have we done? We've built a Lizardman City. Though we need to finish that one. We need to do a part 2 on that. We've built a Lizardman City. We've built a god of the Eastern Steppe. We've built the 3 brothers of Tarmakon, and this time we're going to be building an Everchosen, so that's going to be pretty wild. I think it'll be a really good time. That's going to be over on the Lawhammer channel, so make sure that you don't miss that. Then Thursday evening, I'm very excited for Thursday. I was supposed to do this for... Oh, wait, no, Thursday. Yeah, Thursday I'm going to be doing a... collaboration stream with Aurelia Tempress, who is a Warhammer 40k VTuber. She's very, very fun, super sweet. She's a ball. We're gonna be hanging out with her and playing some Total War Warhammer. So we're gonna be doing a co-op campaign. I'm pretty sure we're gonna be doing she's gonna be playing Emmerich, and I'm gonna play, I think, Grease's Goldtooth. Grease's is reasonably close. And I do really love the new ogre mechanic, so I think I'm gonna do Greases. I'm feeling like a fat boy Thursday. So that should be a really good time. And then on Friday, we're gonna be doing a really fun stream that I was supposed to do for Valentine's Day, which was, like 20 days ago or whatever it was. And we're gonna be doing a tier list stream. And it's just gonna be me. It's not Andy, it's just me. But I'm gonna do a tier list stream where I'm going to rank all of the husbandos and waifus of Warhammer Fantasy. And it's not every single character in existence, but it's all the legendary lords plus a bunch of bonus characters. So I'm really excited for that. It should be a lot of really stupid fun. You'll get to learn too much about me. Far too much. But we're gonna be doing that on Friday night. And then Saturday, and any of these days, there might be a morning stream. there might be morning streams. The only one that's definitely going to happen is that I think on Thursday morning, I am gonna try something new. Which on Thursday morning, I want to try messing around with the YouTube membership system, because unlike all of the other systems, YouTube membership has a feature where you can do a stream that only members are able to watch, and it's not going to be anything like super important. It's more of a weird experiment where I'm going to be messing around.
Hello there. How are you and the doggo doing, Sotek?
We're good.
If you could bring in one unit from TTM to TWWH3 that isn't yet, what would it be? Also, could we get a lore fact about the relationship between Tyrion plus Teclis? I have betrayed my usual lore facts about the...
That's a lot of things. Yes, I'll get to that in just a moment. Also, thank you for the 4 years. Holy shit. Thank you very much. We'll talk about that in a second. So, Thursday morning will be the membership stream where what I'm going to essentially talk about...
of Magic plus Patriarchs?
I will get caught up on those in a second. I'll get caught up on all these in a second. Thank you for the tips and stuff. Super chats and all that, I will get caught up in just a moment. So the membership thing is going to be on Thursday morning, and that's going to be kind of an experimental format. To what I'm going to be talking about, if you want to be like, oh, I want a YouTube membership so I can go watch that stream. I am mostly going to be discussing some stuff about I'm going to be talking about how I do research about Warhammer Fantasy and what's been my experiences with it. I am going to be talking quite a bit about the Queek stuff. So if you want to hear me ramble and mostly bitch about Queek, that will be what that is about. But it's not going to be anything like super crazy, I don't think, but it's more of an experiment for me to see how the membership streams work and like how it functions, to see if that's something I want to mess around with in the future. But that's what I'm going to be talking about then. And then on Saturday, we just have a morning stream for Total War if I'm still, for some reason, haven't got through the Gorbad campaign. And then on Sunday on Lorebeards, we're going to be delving into Hell Pit, which should be a super duper duper good time. So yeah, that's the schedule. It should be a good time. Now I can get caught up on all of your wonderful, extremely gracious, incredibly kind tips and such. Hammond, put on ASMR Rainstorm. Are you trying to sleep? are you coming to rest here? I mean I can in a bit. Let me get through these. Christopher, thank you again for renewing your membership. Curtis Newman Jr. Hi, Loremaster. I'm super excited for patch 6.1 for Total War Warhammer 3. I'm looking forward to the rework Dearest Mother Kiss so deserves. Me too. It is, oh my god. It's been a long time coming. It has been a long time coming. The Kislev stuff looks really good. It looks really, really good. Lord Gron, thanks so much for gifting a sub to Darnath Lysander. Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Also, Lord Gron, thank you for the 32 months. Much obliged, my good sir. Yeah, I've not tried out Sovel yet. I intend to try out Sovel soon. It is on my to-do list. Uber Trolls, Hashet Vorgund Zarnagrund. Yes, indeed. Thank you for... I always appreciate me some good Chaos Dwarf Dawizar oil money. I will always accept that sweet, sweet Chaos Dwarf oil money. Cole Patterson, I saw the Wolfrup team working on the old world version did an interview. Have you thought of trying to do one with them? Also, Sovel's good. A, great, awesome to hear. B, yes. So, bit of an awkward story. I attempted to do an interview with the Cubicle 7 team when the Lustria book came out, which was at least a year ago now, maybe a year and a half, something like that. But when that book was on its way out, when it first got released, like the PDF, I did a live stream where I talked about it. And during the chat about it, I got the attention of several of the people that were either working at Cubicle 7 or had worked on the book itself. And so a couple of people reached out to me and were like, hey, would you want to chat with us, yada yada yada. And I was like, oh, okay. And so I got the email or a way to communicate with Dom, which Dom is he's the head of Cubicle 7 Studios. And I had a little bit of a back and forth with them, and we were organizing a chat about the Lustria book, and then the communication just broke down. I don't really know what happened, but either because they got really busy or I don't know what happened, but it ended up just kind of falling through, and I wasn't able to get an effective enough series of responses to get something scheduled. So I probably should try again at some point soon. I can tell y'all that we're gonna have a pretty prolific person who has worked on a lot of Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay on a coming up episode of Lorebeards. I'll be announcing that tomorrow tomorrow night at the Lorebeard stream. With that, we're gonna have another really special guest coming on the show to chat with me and Andy, but I'm gonna wait till tomorrow evening to reveal that. So look forward to that. But at some point, I would love to have a chat with them about some stuff. I don't know if they want to chat with me, but if they do, I'd certainly be down for it. And then Spartan, Sadie's doing well. Thank you for asking. If you could bring in one unit from tabletop into Total War Warhammer 3 that isn't in yet, what would it be? A unit that we have in tabletop that we don't have in Total War. Honestly, I would probably pick something kind of weird that I worry isn't gonna make it. Oh, did I say it? No. It's not Andy Hall. It's someone that's worked on Cubicle 7 stuff. It's not an Andy. The I just had a brain fart. What the hell was I talking about? Bringing a unit from tabletop. I would want to pick a unit that I'm worried isn't going to make it in the game, and I want it in the game. So for me, the big one would be, I would want the Shard Dragon. That would be my choice. I think the Shard Dragon is super damn cool, and it's a very unique monster compared to many of the others that we have in the setting. The only thing close to it is actually the Kislevite Frost Dragon, Frost Worm, whatever it's called, which is very different, obviously. As the Frost Worm is, it's a similar type of creature to the Frost Worm, but obviously the Frost Worm wasn't a thing in tabletop. That's something new that we got with Total War. So I would very much want the Shard Dragon added to the Dwarf roster. I know a lot of people don't want it, but I want it, and I don't really care about their opinion. It's a canonical dwarf monster, and I want it, okay? I think it's fine. I think dwarves are allowed to have big things. If dwarves can have a thunder barge, they can have a fucking Shard Dragon. It's fine. Yeah. And then a lore fact about the relationship between Tyrion and Teclis. I'll just give like a briefing that, let's see, a little small one would probably, a little small one would be that Tyrion almost killed Teclis once completely by accident, and I find that very funny because that would have been such a goofy way for their story to end. That when Tyrion first got his hands on Sunfang, his super famous sword, that was wielded by Anarion before Anarion drew the Widowmaker. When Tyrion gets his hand on Sunmaker, he's messing around with it on a boat that him and Teclis are in a cabin together. And when Tyrion's learning about Sunfang, when Tyrion and Teclis are learning about Sunfang, basically it comes up that Sunfang has like a command word, essentially, that unleashes a power. And so Tyrion says it without really thinking, and it causes Sunfang to do what it's designed to do, which is that it belches out like a big, just like intense dragon fire. And Tyrion misses Teclis by like that much. So he almost immolates his brother and kills him, which is very funny to me. Even if it was a little traumatic for poor Teclis. Let's Lord Chris, a tier list of the colleges of magic and patriarchs. Oh, that could be really fun for Lorebeards. That would be a really good one, I think, for Lorebeards. That's a great idea, Lord. I'm going to add that to the list, actually. Bring up the list!
Another wretched foul lizard thing joins the
Where's my list? There it is.
Cursed Sotek spawn!
Your
Okay.
streams are the best streams to paint to. This
Oh.
is so many months.
That is 44 months. That is many months, Altar. I really appreciate that. Thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying it. Even though it's literally just me yapping like a dumbass. Tier list, colleges of magic and their patriarchs / matriarchs. All right, Cool. Great. Awesome. It's on the list. And thank you again for the 44 months. Biofoot. Fucking Fishman. Also, hope you're having a great day, my dude. The talk on Sunday was amazing. It was great to see you guys tackle the difficult subject of what the fimir mean with compassion. Well, thank you. I really appreciate that, Biofoot. I'm pretty pleased with Sunday's stream. That one has been sitting in my brain for a long time. I don't remember when the first time I broached it with Andy was, but I remember we had a discussion about it. Where we talked about the fimir, and he brought up, we had a little bit of back and forth. He brought up the story about that woman that came to the event that he was at, and I was talking about some stuff. And the first time we discussed it, Andy, I don't want to say that he was saying no, but Andy didn't really want to discuss it. He didn't want to do a Lorebeards episode on it. But I think as time has kind of passed, and Lorebeards has settled more into what it is, and yada 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 yada, we finally felt that the show was in a place, and the audience for the show was in a place where we could discuss it. It was an enjoyable episode. Andy always cracks me up of that. We're stubborn in different ways. I feel very, very strongly about the fimir, in that I don't consider their original write-up to be enough of a holy grail that it needs to be respected anymore, because it's so old, and everything that has ever come since disagrees with it or omits stuff. And I know Andy did not agree with that, but I feel very confident about my interpretation of the fimir than any of that stuff. But yeah, I'm glad y'all enjoyed it. We were nervous about that episode. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. That got into some pretty heavy topics. And it's one of those things that's a little tricky, because you never know how an audience is going to react to it. I mean, I've had discussions on the fimir in the past, or about other subjects in Warhammer, where you're like, oh, I think we should change this thing about Warhammer to be better. And it's not unusual for someone to kind of come out of the woodwork and be like, oh, well, probably the most extreme case is when you have a situation where you're like, oh, well, we don't really need to have this super overt, over the top sexual assault aspect to this race as a core fundamental of their identity. That should probably be changed to be something else, where it could be something that exists on the periphery, but it shouldn't be one of the core facets of them as a species. I've had that discussion in the past, and had some people come out of the woodwork and be like, well, if you're okay with people being killed or sacrificed to dark gods, I mean, that's not nearly as that's way worse than what the fimir were doing to people. And it's no. No, that's not how this works. Let's not worry about comparisons of morality here, and just deal with the issue at hand. But yeah, I felt pretty good about that episode. I don't think it's my favorite Lorebeards, but I felt that it was a pretty decent one. But I mean, for me especially, if you look at the lore that we have for the fimir now, and you consider the canonical stuff we have now, the fimir, that old stuff about the fimir needing to be essentially be like a parasitic species that uses humanity no longer makes any sense. It doesn't make sense. The fact that if a fimir matriarch dies, it will wipe out a fimir clan, right? If the matriarch dies, it causes the entire clan to go on a death quest, and they're all going to die. They cannot reproduce anymore. So that means you need to have a matriarch. right? Like the matriarch must survive. As long as there's a matriarch, the clan can reproduce. However, thanks to Cubicle 7 and the newest writings we have on the Fimir from the Winds of Magic book, we get Mona Mim, and Mona Mim has lost her clan. She's the only survivor of her entire clan, and all that's left is the matriarch. That as a matriarch, all of her children start dying around her, and when the Dyraks die and all this other stuff, she's unable to produce any more Fimir. If it's simply that the matriarchs have the knowledge, the know-how, and the ability to do this parasitic reproduction, then Mona Mim should be able to resurrect her clan. She should be able to reproduce and make more Fimir, but she can't. She is completely alone, and her family is dead. Like, they're all gone. Which, to me, like, taking the newest lore we have, that means that you need male and female Fimir. I would suggest it seems to mean that you need a matriarch and you need Dyraks, or Bale Fiends. Or maybe you could get away with just matriarchs and nobles. But you seem to need a specific combination of Fimir in order for them to reproduce. And if either of those connections get severed, the clan will collapse. But I don't know, it's interesting. It's interesting. If the Fishmen make their The Old World debut, we all owe Marius Leetdorf a big apology. Dude, Marius Leetdorf is my favorite mad genius. He's so fun. What are my thoughts on the Age of Sigmar Fimir not being Chaos Aligned? I think it's fine. I actually think it would make a lot of sense if the Fimir survived into Age of Sigmar, considering how abandoned and betrayed they were by the Dark Gods. Surely they would do everything in their power to break free of chaos, to, you know, leave behind these entities that betrayed them and abused them and join another faction. So I think the Fimir being a destruction race, which is what they were, they left chaos for destruction, would make a ton of sense, and I think would be a very logical and satisfying evolution to their character and their species. However, they didn't last as long as I would have liked. The Fimir, I think the Fimir were only around for maybe they were around for first and second edition. The Fimir got retired during second edition. But there's a lot of rumors that the Fimir are going to be coming out in the upcoming Beast of Chaos book, which I really hope is true. There's been a lot of leaks already about the Wood Elf and Beastman models that are coming back. So there's been a lot of like the Wood Elf character packs and the Beastman character packs leaking online. The only thing I've seen for the Beastman as far as like new stuff goes is they've brought back the cockatrice. So the cockatrice from the Storm of Magic book, it got reprinted, but it's in the new Forge World resin as opposed to the old stuff, so it's much better quality than it used to be. Anyway, yeah. So today we are here to discuss the Old World. I want to kind of sit and have a chat about a lot of the lore updates, particularly from the new High Elf book, which is probably going to look weird because of my blue screen. But there's some interesting stuff in here. The Old World is, I think, doing some very interesting setups for future editions. One of the things that I actually really, really like, that I've been thinking a lot about with the Old World, is how do I say this? The Old World has been doing a surprisingly careful job of having a really slow build up to what's going on in the world. Instead of kind of like rushing it, trying to get everybody into like giant, super big engagement fights and yada yada yada. And here, why don't I move over to this screen? But I'll bring myself back. Here we go. So we can have something a little more interesting in the background. But there's a lot of really curious decisions that I think they're making. That I want to chat a little bit about and barf out some theories cooking in my brain. Before they put out more stuff, because we are getting very close to the end of first edition. First edition Old World is, I would guess it's probably gonna end either after Cathay or after, I would be surprised if there's much after Cathay. I've heard some rumors that there might be some kind of like Southern Realms book that gets released that makes Estalia, Talea playable. I would love for that to be true, but for me, that is very heavily under the I'll believe it when I see it tag. I have a hard time believing that, but I would be super duper pleased to be wrong. Necromancer Cobalt, thank you very much for the super chat. I'm super hopeful that Mona gets in Total War. How would I react to the announcement, or would I react to the announcement with Andy to see the lore changes, additions, if any? Hell yeah, I would. Dude, if Mona got into Total War, I would have to throw like a party. Will this stream be archived? Yeah, you can watch it on YouTube. It'll be here. Yeah, I would lose my shit in the best possible way if Mona got in. I really feel like Mona is a bit of a stretch, I'm not gonna lie. Taking a character that's kind of just pure Warhammer Fantasy roleplay, like, she's established, she's already been approved by Games Workshop, so she is like a canonical part of the setting, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's something that Creative Assembly would be super interested in, like, pulling on. Because they haven't, I mean, you could argue that they've done Wolfrip characters. Technically, Prince Yuri, or Daniel, the Demon Prince, technically he's from 2nd edition Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, but it's not like an extreme connection. It's a vague connection. Does this map have updates from the High Elf range release? Yes, it does. So it's got the new, like, High Elf sub-factions and High Elf clickable stuff. Oh yeah, WPK, I did see it. It was super cool. I'm trying to be a lot better about going on the Discord. I'm on there a lot, but I don't usually say anything. I just kind of like to lurk and see what y'all are talking about. But when y'all, like, post really cool little things, I try to be good about, like, at least putting a little reaction emoji. After Kernshima, after hearing the story of Mona, I feel like there should be a scenario where she found and picked up a crying human infant and raised them up since she wants companionship. That would be a logical storyline for her, I think. Now, there would probably be some serious problems with that child. I don't think being raised by a Fimir matriarch would be healthy, especially because Mona is kind of insane. She's not in a good headspace right now. I think if she were to save a human infant, she'd probably be very bipolar with them and would kind of flip-flop between, like, screaming at them incoherently and yelling at them and blaming them for all of the problems that she suffers from, and then flipping around to being very, like, caring and apologetic and motherly and stuff like that. It would be an interesting dynamic, but it would probably be an unhealthy dynamic. Yeah. Actually, hold on. Let me put y'all on this screen so y'all can see yourselves talking. Why don't we do that? Ooh, it's a little hard to see. Wish I could, like, wonder if I could change the color of the text. No, not really. Well, y'all just have to deal with it. It's not great, but I suppose it's good enough. Maybe if I put you over here, it's a little easier to see. Not by much. Nah, y'all can just... Hold on. Can I make the... I need to add a background color. That's what I need to do. Hold on. Let me fix this so that it's legible. It would be here, I think. Oh lordy. Where is this from? Yeah, it's this widget. Oh, if we did like that, that would help. Yeah. Oh, I can even enable more emotes. Okay, this is actually looking better than it has been. Well, if we did it boxed like that, then I could make the background invisible, couldn't I? Sorry, I shouldn't be doing this live, but I'm an idiot. Let's see what this does. Okay, y'all say something. Let's see. On the topic of the old world, how do I feel about Friedel? Friedel. Okay, that's better. That's better. Okay, that's legible. That's good enough. Personally, I wasn't very happy that Games Workshop made a Sea Raiders Army of Infamy and then had a character be a generic Chaos Lord over a Norskin / Sea Raider character look more unique / original. Mo Diddle, yeah, I would agree. I like Friedel's as a character. I wish that she was more of like what the Seawolves are supposed to be as a faction, where she's more of like a true Norskin barbarian type character. But I understand what they're doing with her. You know, she's Old World's Wulfric the Wanderer is what she is. Where Wulfric was the exact same thing. Wulfric is a big bag Norskin, but when you're dealing with chaos, to become like a notable big bad, you're gonna have chaos armor. And it's something that I kind of wish GW would explore a little alternative, like a little different. I'm not as big of a fan of the current system. I'm not as big of a fan of the current system, where they always look like a Warrior of Chaos character first and a Norskin character second. Like, I think if they had given her a little less armor, but maybe leaned a little bit more into like the like I think they could have stripped down the armor a little bit more, have her like showing more skin, maybe having like, I like her mutations, I like her weapons, I like her lore. Friedel is a very cool character. The fact that Friedel is actively invading the Empire right now and is taking territory and inviting her fellow Norskins to come down and reinforce this town that she's taken, so that the Norskins can start to actually get a foothold in the Empire and start pushing them back. I think that's really fucking cool. Like, that is a storyline that we have not had back in the old world, or back in OG fantasy, which is very silly. Because if you wanted to have a Norskin who was going to prove that they're the, like, if a Norskin wants to prove that they're dead hard and they're a badass, right? And they're just like, they are something truly special, then not just raiding the Empire, but conquering part of the Empire would be the way to do it. Like, that is such a big balls move, to a ridiculous degree, that it's crazy. So I really like that Thriddle the Chainmaker, I like that she's that level of arrogant and ballsy, and is also taking advantage of how messed up the Empire is right now. Because hopefully, if they're playing their cards right, the big thing that we need to see for the Empire is that the Empire needs to get its ass handed to it consistently for a lot of the coming updates. Like, outside of a few rare locations, they should be getting their butts whooped to build up to the desperation behind why they all unite under Magnus the Pious. Is Araby part of the old world? Yes, technically. Obviously on this map it's not. Like, Araby's on the map, but the most important parts of Araby are over here off the map. So currently it's not, but that doesn't mean anything necessarily. Most people would say that the old world includes Araby. I would say most people would agree on that. That being said, currently the answer is no. But we also already know that we're going to Grand Cathay. Like, Grand Cathay is going to be part of the old world, which is very silly because it is nowhere near the old world. It's very far away. Yeah. Is it true that the Arabians are descendants, or Arabians, depending on how you would say it, are descendants of Nehakarans that migrated? That is extremely likely. Yes. So there are three areas that humanity seems to have sprung from. The first is the southern jungles. So the jungles of the gods, and the western jungles, that is where the ancient ancestors of the Nehakarans, the Arabians, and a lot of the peoples that would also go on to live in Talea, Estalia, the Border Princes, and the Badlands would come from. And also several tribes that would go up into the Empire as well. Then you have the Eastern Steppe, and which is where the Eastern Steppe begins and ends and the Chaos Waste begins is a little, but there is also the Eastern Steppe, which has obviously a shit ton of Chaos tribes. And a lot of these tribes, for various reasons, came... so you had a bunch of humans up in the Eastern Steppe, and eventually they all started to migrate southwest. And a bunch of them migrated all the way down into the world, through past the World's Edge Mountains and into the Empire. So this is where we got our Umburgans, or Teutigans, and a lot of these other groups. And then you also have the ancient Cathayans. So there was another big old group of humans in like central Cathay-ish. That being said, there are also some kind of like mystery groups that may be a fourth group. For instance, the Belthani people may have come from Albion, or maybe the people of Albion came from the Belthani. And we know that the old ones had contact with the people of Albion, the Druids, their ancestors. So it could be that there are 4 groups of humans, instead of 3. And there's also the question of the Amazons. Like, what are the Amazons really? You know, are they human, or are they something completely different? That's a big question that's very difficult to answer. So if the answer is they're completely different, then obviously there's nothing to add there. But if the answer is that they are humans, but maybe like they have some sort of power or artifacts or sacred place that they have access to that has changed them over time, but they were originally human, well, then that means we have 5 human starting locations, because that means we would have humans of Lustria as well. So there's a lot of potential answers for that. Rocker Boy Jukebox, thank you so much for the super chat. Do you think Bretonia will have a bigger role in the war against chaos in the new lore? Yes. Yes. Will they rectify the Ladriel Lilith bullshit? I doubt it. It's possible, but it's possible, but very unlikely. The big reason I say that is they recently released the High Elf Player's Guide from Cubicle 7. And so Cubicle 7 has been pumping out player guides recently. So we have the Dwarf Player's Guide and the High Elf Player's Guide. And both of them have changes to the lore that I really don't like. I actually have recorded a roughly hour-long video on the Dwarf Player's Guide that's being edited right now. And once it's done being edited, I have to sit down and listen to it all the way through, because I was really passionate when recording that video, because I care a lot. I wasn't angry. Like, I genuinely wasn't mad. I was just passionate. And I'm a little worried in retrospect that I came off like I was angry, or I came off sounding like a douche. So I have to listen back to it once it's done being edited. And hopefully I don't sound like a raving lunatic. Because there are some things about that book I'd really like to see changed lore-wise. And I feel the same about the High Elf book. The High Elf Player's Guide, oh my god, dude, the god lore is horrible. It's so bad. It's so messy. Like, they completely goofed the High Elf, or the Elf Pantheon. Not the High Elf Pantheon, but all of their Pantheon. There's been some changes, but the thing that's really difficult is that it's really hard to tell what is, oh yeah, Games Workshop said this is the way it is, so that's how we wrote it, and oh no, Games Workshop isn't actually reviewing things that much anymore, so C7 has been slipping a lot of weird things in. Because one of the things that I feel very strongly about, and I want to be really clear when I say this, that this is not intended as like an attack on anyone. It is a criticism, but it is not an attack. I want to make that so clear before I say this. But there is a very notable bias amongst the current writers for Cubicle 7's Warhammer Fantasy books, that they prefer really much older lore. If you read any of the books they've had coming out, when they do a really great job is when they take all of the lore and they try and pull it together to tell a story. So taking the lore from 3rd edition Warhammer Fantasy all the way up to 8th edition Warhammer Fantasy and mixing it together to make something cool and awesome. And introducing new ideas. Whenever they introduce new ideas, that's also really cool and awesome. They're great about those. The bad thing that I've seen a lot of recently, and I saw this in the Dwarf Player's Guide, the High Elf Player's Guide, is that there's starting to be a very strong creeping influence of older lore kind of taking over and erasing 8th edition stuff. And I'm really not a big fan of that. I think that's a bad play, because instead of trying to integrate them together, they're just like choosing their favorites and throwing the rest in the trash. And granted, like, when you're dealing with the Wolfrip writing teams, individuals, the way it works is it's kind of like a commission basis. So it's not like a dedicated team of writers that work at C7. They're individuals scattered all over the world that are hired on a commission basis to write a certain part certain parts of certain books. And the upside to that is you get a lot of really interesting, fresh ideas, and a lot of really cool, different takes. The downside to that is that you get some. The downside to that is you get some issues where some of the writers have very strong opinions about how something should be in the setting, and they will force the way they want things to be into the setting. So like a really easy example, I'm not going to name names, but in the Lustria book, there was an author who worked on that book and very deliberately added in a little small adventure hook thing where they said that vampire elves were a thing. So they went in there and they wrote a storyline about how a high elf at one of the colonies had defected to join the vampire coast, and Luther Harkin turned them into a vampire. So there was a vampire elf. And I if you weren't here for it, I did a live stream on the Lustria book, and when I read that, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, that is not correct. That is no. Like that is, you cannot do that. Like, that is a huge no. And the thing about it is that author knew that wasn't supposed to be a thing. That author beyond a shadow of a doubt knew that's not really supposed to be a thing, but they put it in anyway because they wanted it to be a thing and they thought it should be a thing. So they just kind of like snuck it in there. And what apparently, either Games Workshop got wind of it because of my bitching about it, or it just caused enough of a stir at C7 that they fixed it. So when the physical copy of the book came out, they had edited it. So instead of it being, oh, it's an elf that defected and turns into a vampire, now it says, I think, like, an elf got captured and is being held prisoner by the vampire counts, or the vampire coast. So yeah, it's a little frustrating sometimes when you're reading through the books and you see those moments where an author is very clearly inserting like their personal headcanon, and it just like flies in the face of all of the other established lore and literature. And I feel like there's been more and more of that, and I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. But you know, and I don't like to try. I don't think of myself as a lore purist. I really do not think of myself as someone that says that, oh no, you can't do this other thing. But I think if you want to try and make an idea work, you have to try and make it work, as opposed to just inserting it, being like, well, that's the way it is now. Like I would love to work for pennies on the dollar if Cubicle 7 ever wanted to hire me to just do read-throughs of their books and flag down stuff to be like, oh hey, like, you know, maybe this should be reworded, or this should say this instead, or this is a problematic idea, or this should reference this. Because like the Dwarf Player's Handbook, like a really easy example. A really easy example is that when you read the Dwarf Player's Handbook and you go to the timeline section, actually I could just show you. I can't show you the entire book because that wouldn't be fair to them. I'm not gonna like let y'all just steal it, so to speak. But I can show you a page that it has no right to be what it is. Especially because they've put out 2 fixes so far. They've put out 2 updates for the Dwarf Player's Handbook, and they still haven't fixed this yet, and it's driving me crazy. So if we go into the Dwarf Player's Guide, and we go to the timeline section, if I can find the page, there it is. So if we go to the timeline section of the Dwarf timeline, right? This is a very simple, straightforward thing. And 99.99999% of this is totally fine. There are some parts of the book that I'm a little like about, because you can tell there are some parts of this book that you can tell were kind of just copy pasted from the first edition Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay book for Stone and Steel, which was the first ever dwarf roleplay book that also heavily expanded the dwarfs. And I wish they hadn't just copy pasted some of those segments, because they read really weirdly. Like you read and you're like, this doesn't feel like Warhammer Fantasy, and it's because it's from a much older edition. I wish they had, like, it, even if they kept those stories, I wish they had rewritten them to make them feel more appropriate or fresher, but that's neither here nor there. But watch this. So it's a timeline, right? Very simple, straightforward timeline. The higher up you are on this page, the further back the year is. So we start at minus 5,500 of the Imperial calendar. And then we get to, like, you know, year 1 of the dwarf calendar, right? Easy peasy. The further down you go, the further into the future you go. It's a linear calendar, right? There's no weird stops or turnarounds or whatever. It's a purely linear calendar. The Dawi calendar section, number get big. Number get bigger the entire time, right? Super easy. Barely an inconvenience. Great. Until I go to this page. When I go to the second page of the timeline, you may notice there's a part... Actually, no, is it on this page? Oh, here it is. So you may notice something weird happens when I'm going down this page. So we go 1, 23, 103, 403, 404, 500 to 600, 1000, 2205, and then 2518. So we go backwards, right? Instead of going forwards in time, we go backwards in time. And then we look at what the actual thing says, and it says, High King Alric is slain at the Battle of Black Falls. No, he isn't. No, he's not. That is not true at this date. High King Alric is the father of High King Alric's son. And High King Alric's son was the High King during the Old World, 200 years ago. And when he dies, he is succeeded by Thorgrim Grudgebearer. So, according to this, High King Alric was on the throne thousands of years ago, and then died, and High King Gotrek takes over for some reason. And you may go, oh, well, maybe it's a different High King Alric. Except, no, this is a very famous battle. The Battle of Black Falls is super duper 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 famous. But this happened in, like, oh my lord. It happens in, like, it happens in 2205, 2203. So it's supposed to be, like, here. So it's just in the complete, like, not only is it clearly an error because it messes up the way the timeline is organized, but it's not even the right year. It's like almost 2,000 years too early. And also in the year minus 1676 of the Imperial calendar, nothing happens in the Dwarf calendar. Nothing. So I don't even know how they got this date so wrong. Because it's like, I went and looked at the other timelines, and it's like, oh, well, maybe something did happen in minus 1676, I see, and they just accidentally put the wrong text. But no! There's nothing there! There's nothing in minus 1676! Nothing happened! So, they still haven't fixed it. This book also has a bunch of other issues. Like, the book repeatedly calls Thorgrim Grudgebearer the son of High King Alricsson, and that is not correct. And the new book even says that. So it's not like Cubicle 7 is like, oh well, the old lore changed it. They just don't know they just don't know the lore sometimes. And it's really painful when that happens. Like right here it says, oh actually no, it says that earlier, but they repeatedly call Thorgrim the son of High King Alricsson, and he's not. Thorgrim is his nephew, which is, it's a pretty important difference, because all of Alricsson's sons die at the Battle of the Gates of Kislev, or they died against Greenskins in the years before. And High King Alricsson is supposed to be mortally wounded at the Battle of the Gates of Kislev, which has been a storyline for a super long time. You can go back to I think the earliest explicit mention I found was 6th edition books that talk about High King Alricsson going to the Battle of the Gates of Kislev, and he gets mortally wounded there, which is why he ends up dying and Thorgrim takes over the throne. This book completely changes that, and that's the one I really rant the most about, because it ruins High King Alricsson's story. And the biggest beef I have with this book is it doesn't change it for something better, it just removes it. Where it's like, oh, High King Alricsson stays home in Karasakarak and doesn't do anything. He just sits there. And Prince Thorgrim is sent in his stead to the Battle of the Gates of Kislev. And it's like, why, though? Like, High King Alricsson is supposed to go to the Battle of the Gates of Kislev, where he does, like, a bunch of badass stuff. He's mortally wounded, and then he spends the next year holding essentially, like, a contest to determine who is going to be the next High King, because all of his sons die. So he has no heir. There's no heir to the throne. So they hold a contest, or he essentially holds, like, a year-long competition for every viable prince or king to prove why they should be High King. And Thorgrim, through his merit, through his accomplishments, ends up proving why he should be High King. Because he goes and he, like, rediscovers a bunch of artifacts, he reestablishes contact with the Norscan dwarfs, and he just, like, kicks a bunch of ass. And he's great and awesome and cool. And Cubicle 7 has replaced it with, High King Alricsson stays home. No explanation for why he abdicates the throne. And it doesn't talk about how Thorgrim got the throne. It makes it seem like Thorgrim Grudgebearer only became High King because of nepotism. Like, oh, well, High King Alricsson dies, and so Thorgrim inherits the throne. Which sucks. I hate that, because it lessens Thorgrim's character. Instead of it being that High King Thorgrim Grudgebearer, good lord. Instead of making it where he earned the role as High King, it makes it feel like he just got it, and it's terrible. Like, the only thing they change that it's like, okay, is that they're like, oh, Thorgrim goes to the Battle of the Gates of Kislev, where he sees how much of a badass Magnus the Pious is, and he and the dwarves end up bowing to Magnus the Pious, and Thorgrim renews the oath of Kurgan Ironbeard, to basically be like, oh yeah, we're still bros, humanity. And it's like, that's no dwarf prince would bow to Magnus the Pious. No dwarf would do that. They would not do that. First of all, the High King should be there, because if anyone's going to renew the oath of Kurgan Ironbeard, it should be the High King, not a prince who's not even the son of the High King. He's his nephew. It should be the High King of the dwarves that renews the oath of Kurgan Ironbeard. I'm cool with that part. But, like, bowing to Magnus, that's absurd. Magnus is not royalty. Magnus is not a noble. Magnus isn't even emperor yet. Magnus doesn't become emperor until after the Great War is ended. He becomes emperor in like 2303. Like the months afterwards, he becomes emperor. Like oh boy, I'm super not a fan of that. Anyway, sorry, that was a completely by the by rant. Like, I will say, my biggest fear about the change to High King Alric's story and Prince Thorgrim doing some weird fucking thing where he bows before Magnus. I'm really worried that Games Workshop did that. Like, Games Workshop told them to do that, as opposed to it just being what one of the writers put in. I'm hoping it was just one of the writers decided to do that. Because if it's just like one of the writers made that decision, then that's something that could be changed. And it could be, okay, that person just like grossly overestimates how, or like just makes the dwarves very silly for some reason. And it could be repaired. But a part of me is scared that Games Workshop is doing that to try and be like, oh, look how cool Magnus is. And it's like, Magnus is already cool. You don't need to diminish the dwarves to raise him up. Like, he's already ridiculous. Like, the dude was not a super well-trained warrior. He wasn't a noble. He wasn't a warrior priest. And he's through his passion and his faith and his genuine genius, he's able to unite the fractured bits of the Empire and lead an army that manages to kill a fucking Everchosen. Like, that's a big deal. Anyway, sorry. That was a very unnecessary rant, and wasn't at all what I wanted to talk about.
Null_Captain_Hammond cheered. X100. Turin snuck into the C7 offices.
God, I would hope Turin would not do us dirty like that. Turin should have more respect for dwarfs than that. Tanner Jordan, what is your favorite piece of lore and unit from the Koresh project? Been wanting to ask you and Andy. That's a good. My favorite thing that we saw in the Koresh stream would have to be probably the Mirrored Hydra. The Mirrored Hydra is like fucking amazing. Like just a big, terrifying kaiju type creature. I love those things, and the fact that it has a absolutely mind-bending laser fire breath crazy shit is great. I love big snake monsters. They make me happy. I'm a Sotek stan. That is, it's in the name. So yeah, I think I'm pretty staunchly on Team Mirrored Hydra. What can the Lizardmen do in the old world? Not a lot at the moment. Do y'all want to hear my crackpot theory? I genuinely believe, this is not me being like, I hope they do this. This is me saying, I think they're going to do this. My biggest hope, and my genuine thought on the old world, and I'm aware it's crackpot, and I'm aware it makes me sound fucking insane, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that I think their goal is to do the entire Warhammer world. And that's going to include everything. It's going to be bringing back in new factions, and it's also going to be bringing back the legacy factions. I think they're starting off with this big focus on the old world, of course, which has all of the major factions that are relevant to what's going on right now. But I think as the timeline moves forward, they're going to start bringing back appropriate factions. So, like, we know that we got Wood Elves and Beastmen next, and then after that we're going to Grand Cathay. And I think after Grand Cathay, we're probably going to see some more Eastern factions. So personally, I'm really expecting after Grand Cathay that we're going to get things like either the Hobgoblin Khanate, Koresh, Nippon, and End. I think those are all very, very realistic. I also think that this is going to lead into the return of the Ogre Kingdoms. I think eventually the Ogre Kingdoms will return, in the Mountains of Morn due to their relevance and closeness to Grand Cathay. And I think the Chaos Dwarfs will also return as the bridging faction between the East and West. I think as the timeline advances, we will get things like the Dark Elves will come back once they invade. I think once the time comes for the Dark Elves to invade Ulthuan, that's when they're going to bring back the Dark Elves. So they'll bring back Malarian and all that stuff for the invasion of Ulthuan. I think they're going to bring back the Skaven at a later date to do their shenanigans as they build up towards the Great Ritual. I think they're going to bring back the Lizardmen. I do think they're going to bring everybody back. I hope they do, because the Great War, the thing that's supposed to make the Great War special, the Great War against Chaos, where Asvar Kul comes down, is that what it's really supposed to be is World War I. It's supposed to be that all of the Warhammer factions that we all know and love are established and they exist, and shit finally hits the fan so hard that it causes a war so big that everyone has to get involved. Everyone's fighting somebody. And the entire world descends into chaos. As Azavar Kul nearly brings about the end times. And ultimately he's stopped, but only through, absolutely Herculean effort. That is my dear sincere belief about how things are going to go down. Right now, I actually think they're doing a pretty good job of very slowly and carefully building up the setting. Like, okay, they added in all of Nehekara, so what's really going on in Nehekara? Not a ton at the moment. The big thing that's going on for Nehekara right now is that there's a big bad Lich Priest. There's a big bad army that's marching its way north, and they're heading for near Tor Anrock. But there's a big old army of Tomb Kings heading up here because they're wanting to find Cetra's right-hand general who got killed at the end of the Lords of the Lands book by a bunch of greenskins. The Bretonnians got that's a super fun book, by the way. But that's one of those things I'm really curious how Games Workshop's going to resolve that particular thing, because I really liked how Lords of the Lands made Cetra's right-hand general a Tomb Queen, the Amaranthian Queen. She was super fucking terrifying and nasty. But the Tomb King Arcane Journal makes it the Amaranthian King, so it's just another Tomb King. That doesn't really do anything super interesting. But Cetra's armies are trying to find this Tomb King, Tomb Queen. I hope they end up keeping it as the Tomb Queen, because I actually really liked her. She was very, very cool. And resurrecting her, or getting her back. But Cetra is preparing a naval invasion for Bretonnia. But before Cetra attacks Bretonnia, he's unleashing his wrath against the Border Princes. So he's going to be following the Xandri. So Cetra the Imperishable himself is leading his fleet up through the Black Gulf, and his goal is to attack the Border Princes and take out places like Aquilina, Tordono, and Lewin Keep. And he also has a army that's moving over land. That is, their goal is to grab the Amaranthine Queen and get her resurrected and back in order, led by a Lich Priest, or a High Lich Priest. And their goal is to take out, I think it's actually to siege the Citadel of Myrmidia to make sure, if I recall correctly, they're supposed to destroy the Citadel of Myrmidia and then lay siege to Barakvar so that the dwarfs won't attack the Tomb Kings from behind. Now, if they do this story the way I hope they do it, the way they should do this is Cetra wins. Cetra should absolutely win this war. He already tore down Tor Anrock, but they should have where Cetra comes up into the Border Princes and he beats their asses. And he defeats Gaston. He doesn't kill him, but he defeats him. Because Gaston is the Wormslayer is a very powerful Bretonnian knight who's in exile. He's in exile from Bretonnia. because of various political shenanigans. And there's a big old army of Bretonnians that are marching over the mountains, and they're heading straight for him because their goal is to reinforce him in time for the fight against Cetra. But I believe this Gaston is going to end up becoming King Gaston. Even though it is spelled different than the original King Gaston. But we know that Bretonnia is supposed to end up with a King Gaston by the end of the Old World storyline, if they don't do significant retcons. So I think what should happen, and hopefully will happen, is Cetra is going to come up into the Border Princes. There's going to be a giant battle between the armies of the Border Princes, Cetra the Imperishable. The Dwarves of Badrkvar are going to be under siege by, like, Greenskin shenanigans and the Tomb Kings. And then, maybe the High Elves of Tol Shinar will help, or maybe they'll just try and stay out of it. But I think Cetra will ultimately win, and he will force the Bretonnians out of the Border Princes. So he's going to force Gaston the Wormslayer, Sir Cecil Gaston. He's going to force him out, along with the prophetess character that we know very, very little about. And they're going to flee back to Bretonnia. And then Cetra, I think, is going to continue his invasion. So once Cetra wins in the Border Princes, he's going to get on his ships again, and he's going to set sail for Bretonnia. Now, there's a chance, if they end up making Astalia and Talea playable factions, that he might continue a land invasion into Talea. But I don't know if they're going to make Talea and Astalia playable. I've heard rumors that they will, but I don't know if I believe those. And then we get but when Cecil Gaston comes back to Bretonnia, I think he's going to find Bretonnia is an absolute mess. And I think the reason he's going to find Bretonnia an absolute mess is because of this guy. So we know that for the Greenskins, their big bad at the moment is War Boss Spinecracker. So War Boss Spinecracker is the big bad among the orcs and goblins right now. He's the war boss of the Bloody Tusk tribe, and he's up here in the Grey Mountains, which I will say is something I'm very excited about for the old world and is super fucking cool. Is that the big bad Greenskin we're starting the old world with is from the Grey Mountains. He's not a Badlands tribe, which they virtually always are. He's not a Darklands tribe. He's not a Forest Goblin tribe. He's a Grey Mountains orc, which is super cool. Like, the Grey Mountains are supposed to have produced some pretty nasty orcs and goblins over the years. So the fact that they're finally giving us a big bad who's coming from the lands between Bretonnia and the Empire is really exciting. So we can see, according to the map here, he's going to sack Caron. So Caron, I think, is going to fall. Or it's going to be sacked by Wah Spinecracker. And then after that, he is going to start heading south, and he's going to get in a fight with King Lewin. So King Lewin is currently at Castle Baston, which is a pretty powerful fortress. And also has, but it has massive oracles sitting right on its borders. So it's got greenskin problems. And I think what they're going to end up doing is that I think King Lewin Orcslayer is going to die. For sure. Like, he has to die. And soon. The real question, of course, is going to be what kills him. What is going to kill King Lewin Orcslayer? There are, I think, a lot of good options. I think the most realistic options are either War Boss Spinecracker is going to kill him. Or I think... what I would do, I think, to do an interesting story with it is probably have it where King Lewin Orcslayer does kill Warboss Spinecracker, but maybe he's heavily wounded in the fight. Like, it takes a lot of him. And then Cetra shows up. Like, I really hope they allow Cetra to be a super dramatic big bad, because one thing that would be super awesome is if Cetra invades Bretonnia, and we get this big fight of, like, the High Elves and Bretonnia unite against Cetra. The Beastmen are running around causing problems. Greenskins are running around causing problems. And King Lewin Orcslayer gets killed by Cetra the Imperishable. I think if Cetra were to kill the king, that would be incredible. That would be such a kick-ass storyline. But we'll have to see. But King Lowen Orc Slayer, I think is, I know beyond a shadow of a doubt, he's gonna die. I don't know what's gonna kill him. I don't know if Spinecracker's gonna get him. I don't know if Cetra's gonna get him. I don't know if one of the Beastmen characters is gonna get him, but somebody's gonna get him. And when he dies, Bretonia is going to enter the Affair of the False Grail. So the Affair of the False Grail is going to focus around Moussion. And what happens here is that the charismatic ruler of Duke Maldred de Moussion is, of course, going to end up being a super duper 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 big bad guy.
Null _ Captain _ Hammond cheered. X100. Suddenly Palpatine, aka Face Flyer, appears.
Face Flyer. No. leave our god awful horrifying orc OC where he belongs. Yeah, no, I think Cetra will still lose the invasion. Cetra's not going to conquer Bretonia. He'll still be defeated. But I think he could still kill King Lowen Orc Slayer. Like, I think that would do because I think with Cetra, the goal would be to have his invasion be scary and devastating enough that you do the character justice and he feels really scary and awesome. Even though his fleet, like, gets heavily crushed. Like, the High Elves get involved, and the Bretonians with their High Elf allies are able to defeat Cetra's fleet. But I would still love for Cetra to kill King Lowen Orc Slayer to just demonstrate how much of a nightmare he is. Like, how much of a borderline demigod he is, that even with his fleet crushed and much of his forces routed, he's still able to kind of, like, keep pushing, and he ends up killing the king before Cetra finally gets brought down. Because the nice thing about Cetra is Cetra can die. Cetra, you can kill Cetra canonically, and it doesn't bother him that much. Cetra dying is a minor inconvenience. Now, they may have him flee as well, but it could also be that Cetra wins the war in the Border Princes, and then he just doesn't pursue. That's also a possibility, that he wins the Border Princes war, and after he wins the Border Princes war, he's like, all right, mission accomplished, and he heads home. If they're gonna keep the 8th edition storyline, which I really hope that Creative Assembly keeps, Cetra will need to return relatively soon to Nehekara because the inciting incident for the War of Snow and Sand is about to kick off. Or Sand and Snow. Where a Norscan army...
Salsa cheered. X100. Cetra dies, but then he got better.
Yeah, exactly. I got better. Hey, man, as long as he's got his casket, he's fine. So I hope they keep the storyline because it follows a Norscan invasion that comes down into Nehekara. They fight their way. I think they sacked Xandri, and then they head further inland, and they get into a fight with Cetra between Xandri and Khemri. And it does not go well for them. Like, they ultimately lose the fight, but not before the like High Chieftain or the Chaos Lord or whatever. He kills Cetra, but when he kills Cetra, the curse of the Tomb Kings goes off, and Cetra's body turns into like a swarm of flesh-eating locusts, and they eat alive that Chaos Lord and kill him. And fly back to Khemri for Cetra's body to reconstitute. But that Chaos Lord's right-hand guy is like, oh, and grabs Cetra's crown off the ground and runs away with it. Which is what pisses off Cetra so much that when he wakes up, he gets a giant fleet back together, and he sails all the way around the old world. He lands over here on the coast of Norska, and he marches across the entirety of Norska, tracking down all the treasure that was stolen from them and just murders everyone. Scarabs. I don't know why I said locusts. Yeah, scarabs. Flesh-eating scarabs. I really hope they keep the War of Sand and Snow, because that would be a perfect explanation for why Norska gets struggles during the final stages of the war against Asvar Kul, or at supporting Asvar Kul, where if Norska ends up being way too busy being wrapped up with an invasion by Settra, that Settra's arrogance and his ego and his pride would end up helping the good guys, because Settra is invading Norska, attacking the Norskins ruthlessly, and because he's doing that, he would inadvertently cut off reinforcements from Norska from flooding into the old world to help out the legions of Asvar Kul, which I think is a really, really cool storyline. I think that does a really good job of showing how these more neutral factions end up getting involved and picking sides. Is that they're not, Settra's not fighting against chaos for the fate of the world or to save the day. He ends up kicking chaos in the nuts because they have the audacity to steal from him, which is great. Absolutely great. Gmander115, how are you doing, sir? I am super well. I need to tweak my OBS, or not my OBS, but my stream alert so that it reads off super chats as well as bit messages. I know I could do it. I just need to do it. Just now getting into lore, and I wanted to ask a fantasy veteran like you, what do I think of the Uberstrike 5? Some of my favorite characters besides the Ogre and the Vampire Coast. The Uberstrike 5 are fantastic. Vermintide is a beautiful, wonderful, exceptional experience, but the lore and love that's gone into those characters is second to none. Vermintide is fairly canonical. It does the story of Vermintide happens, but more importantly, the writers of Vermintide have paid a ton of respect to the background. And there's a lot of love and effort put into the things the characters discuss, and a lot of the little lore tidbits you can learn from the game. Also, if you go on the Vermintide or the Fat Shark website for Vermintide, they have journals, Franz Lohner's journal, where it's once every week or 2 weeks they put out a new entry, and those are always super fun because not only do they hint at upcoming content, but they also talk about what's going on in the world. So you get a lot of really fun lore from the Vermintide cast perspective. So you get stuff about the Vermintide crew hearing about how King Lewin Leoncoeur has died, and that Gilles Le Breton has been revealed as the true identity of the Green Knight, and he's taken over Bretonnia, which is insane. Or one of the things that's actually been building up in the background of Vermintide for a while now. One of the building events in Vermintide is the return of Nagash. So in the end times, Nagash is resurrected in a really big battle known as the Battle of the Nine Demons, which takes place in Sylvania. And the Vermintide storyline has been building that up in the background. Where if you go kind of read the journals and obviously all the stuff that's going on with Sienna becoming a necromancer, there's a lot of stuff about how the resurrection of Nagash is just about to happen. So the Battle of the Nine Demons is about to go down. And it's going to be... I'm really curious what Vermintide is going to do for that, if they're going to do anything. I've always been very much of the opinion that I feel like they should finish the Nurgle team and give us Nurgle demons as the big bad final group. Give us let us fight plague bearers and rotflies and beasts of Nurgle and stuff. That being said, we do know that the vampire counts, some of them end up joining Team Nurgle during the end times, which is a bit of a weird storyline. And most notably, one of the vampire count, or undead, we'll say, one of the undead big bads that ends up joining Nurgle is Drakenfels. And who is a massive baddie in the Vermintide story, because we go to his castle multiple times? Drakenfels! So it would be really logical for undead to, if when they resurrect Nagash, potentially giving us a big bad update or DLC that adds undead enemies to the game, just like they did with Beastmen. But yeah, I love Vermintide. It's super duper great. There's a lot of fantastic lore to be learned from it. And I could not recommend it more. One day I would love to sit down and do a lore video where I just talk about everything that the games talk about, but it's gonna be hell because a lot of it is hidden in audio triggers that are not easy to get. And there's also a lot of stuff from the first game that you have to go back specifically to the first game for. Because funny enough, the first game actually had a lore system. Like one of the features they had in the first game that they haven't brought back for Vermintide 2 was lore pages. So when you were, like, you know how in Vermintide 2 you can find scraps of artwork around the various maps, and if you collect enough pieces of the artwork, it unlocks a painting back in the castle? They had the same thing in Vermintide 1, but it was lore pages. So you'd run around the maps and you'd find pieces of paper from a journal, and if you got enough of the relevant pieces of paper, it would unlock journal entries, and all of the journal stuff was just lore. So it was lore about the end times, it was lore about Ubersreich, it was lore about the Vermintide 5 themselves, and it was super great. But that was a really long time ago, and I remember very little of it. So I would love at some point, I'd have to have help, but I would love at some point to do a sit down and go through the full storyline of Vermintide 1 and 2, as well as like a prequel for where each of the characters were and what they were doing that led to them coming here, because some of the stuff is like vaguely mysterious. Where like the whole thing with Carillion is that Carillion was a Way Watcher back in Athel Loren, but she witnesses something she wasn't supposed to, so she sees like a ceremony or a ritual that she was not meant to witness. And if I recall correctly, she sees something bad. Like she sees like I think she sees like a Glade Lord or some Wood Elf Azrai noble making a deal with like some chaos power or what have you, and she kills him. I think, if I remember right. Though I would not quote me on that. I remember she sees something she's not supposed to, but I can't remember if it's a bad guy or not. If I remember right, I think it's a bad guy and she kills him. But she's not able to like really prove her innocence or prove that he was guilty. So she gets exiled from Athel Loren. So the whole thing about her is that she can't go back to the forest. She's effectively banished. Which is a fate worse than death for a Wood Elf, to be honest. And so like that's how she ends up dealing with some Ubersreich shenanigans. But there's also a whole thing where Carillion is actively involved in weakening Ubersreich. She ends up killing and there are various hints about this because Wood Elves do Wood Elf shenanigans. But there's essentially an incident where she kills a number of people that like would have been on the garrison of Ubersreich, and because of that, she feels guilty. Like she feels like Ubersreich's weakness is her fault, and she's not wrong per se. It's not all her fault, but she is at fault, and so she ends up going to Ubersreich partially out of guilt, and also because she like meets up with Barden, which is also very funny. The fact that the elf and the dwarf ran into each other first in the wild and were dealing with each other is super duper hilarious. But like you have the whole thing with Barden where Barden leaves from his hold, which I can't remember what hold he's from. I think it's Kanak Norn. I can't remember 100%. But you know, he was a ranger, so he kind of lived out in the wilds anyway. But Barden's carrying a lot of like emotional baggage, and we get a lot more information in that in Vermintide 2, where we get the whole lore about like how his dad dies and his everything going on with his daughter and his wife and everything. But he leaves under the claim that he's found like a map or is looking for some critical piece of information on Ubersreich to find the lost hold of Karak Zorn. So like Karak Zorn, which is the first hold of the dwarfs ever. It's where they originate from. But Karak Zorn is like this legendary lost hold deep in the Southlands. and Barton comes to Ubersreich because he's looking for some like critical component of its discovery. Though in Vermintide 2, there's a lot of hints about that Barton never realistically thought he was going to find Karazorn. He was just using it as an excuse to run away from home. You got everything going on with Kruber, where Kruber's regiment gets like brutally massacred by a necromancer that casts Purple Sun at them, which is a horrible way to go. And after his regiment gets massacred, he ends up, his battalion is basically gone. So he ends up getting a job, essentially working for Victor Saltspire. Saltspire actually has, funny enough, of all the characters in Vermintide, if you were going to have a main character, like a character who the story of Vermintide specifically is about, it's really technically more about Saltspire than anybody else. Because Saltspire is like the super anti-Skaven dude. Like, he's obsessed with Skaven. Because the boss from Vermintide 2, Skarek Spinemangler, actually fought Saltspire a while back. And that's how Saltspire lost his eye. Skarek Spinemangler ambushes him when he's like investigating like a tunnel or a Skaven warren. And in the fight, Saltspire gets his eye like ripped out or clawed, or he goes blind in his eye. I can't remember if his eye is real and or if it's a fake eye. I want to say it's a fake eye, but I'm not sure. But he loses his sight in one eye and he gets really messed up. And that's why he has all those like horrible scars and stuff. It's from Skarek Spinemangler attacking him. And after that point, he was like obsessed with Skaven, which got him in trouble. It got him in a lot of trouble with the Order of the Silver Hammer, because the Skaven are not supposed to be a thing. they're supposed to not be real, and it's a no-no to talk about them. And Saltspire became brutally obsessed with them to the point of borderline madness. Like, he's basically an outcast in his order because he's so obsessed with Skaven. And then Sienna went a little off the rocker because Sienna has an addictive relationship with Akshi, the Wind of Fire. She's genuinely addicted to it, which makes her dangerous, genuinely. And she burns down like a town or a village or something and kills a bunch of people. And that's why she gets arrested, and Saltspire comes to get her, with Kruber being his hired assistant, essentially. And I believe they were on their way to, Altdorf, where she would basically be brought before the Colleges of Magic and tried for her crimes. But when they get to Ubersreich, Skaven shenanigans happen, and Saltspire, being a surprisingly forward-thinking witch hunter, basically turns to her and is like, I will let you free if you agree to help me kill as many Skaven as possible and don't try to run away. Like, I won't execute you, essentially, because she was gonna be executed. She was going to be killed. And he basically says, like, I'll give you a stay of execution and not keep you in chains if you'll help me kill as many Skaven as possible. And she's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. And that's how we get our group of 5 little weirdos. Some female pharaohs, like Hatshepsut. Is it Hatshepsut? Use masculine terminology to better fill for their spiritual roles. Inspiration that could fix that lore hiccup. Oh, that's cool, Cole Patterson. That would be a fun idea. She's a college dropout? Yeah. Sienna did not leave the colleges of magic on good terms. Well, I mean, she has her magical license, so she did, like, get through it. She did get through the College of Fire, or the Bright College, but she left as quickly as she could. And she does not have a good relationship with them. Why is there still no proper Ubersreich 5 mod for Warhammer 3? There is, I thought. Considering you can get the Red Moon Inn in Ubersreich itself. So, looking back at this stuff, what are some other fun things that are going on? So, the biggest thing that I wanted actually to say about the old world and why I'm really optimistic about it is the high elf stuff. Oh, Nasior, thank you very much for your super chat, by the way. Grabbing that crown was a fuck up and no mistake. Hell yeah, it was. Hell yeah, it was. Hatshepsut. Thank you. Hatshepsut. So the high elf changes are so dramatic. So dramatic for the Warhammer world. Obviously, Andy and I spoke about this during the mapping stream, but the fact that the high elves have so much power, a standing military among the old world with all of these various towers scattered around all these different islands is amazing. Like, the high elves actually feel like what they always should have been, which is they're the world police. They're the naval authority that pisses everybody off because they're constantly getting involved in everybody's business and crapping in their cereal. That's the high lich priest leading the Tomb King army up the Xandri Road. It's High Priest Ashurtak. Yeah. Like, I cannot express how pleased I am with the high elf changes. The fact that the Dragon's Maw, so this has been here forever, right? The Dragon's Maw has been off the coast of Bretonnia for as long as a map of Bretonnia has existed, I think. But the Dragon's Maw used to always just be, it's a set of really spooky islands that has really bad storms and like extreme waves and surf and stuff. So it's really difficult to get anywhere near it. And people that sail through it, their ships often like crash on all of these reefs and islands that make up the Dragon's Maw. And it's called the Dragon's Maw because it's like super dangerous and there's a lot of like pirates and other bad folk that hide out there because it's so difficult to sail. And it was like, oh, okay, that's cool, I guess. But no, the old world comes in and goes, no, you know what? You know why it's called the Dragon's Maw? Is because it's literally where merworms spawn. And there's also a bunch of actual dragons slumbering down in the caverns beneath the rocks. So there's a bunch of like underwater caverns that have these ancient dragons sleeping in them. And it's also a primary spawning ground for merworms because merworms spawn like fish do, right? Fish don't birth, they spawn. So because this is such a fundamental place for merworms and dragons, it's known as it has been given the name the Dragon's Maw. And you go, oh, that actually makes so much sense. And it's also super dangerous and crazy to sail because of all the storms and the crazy surf and stuff. But elves can sail no problem because elves are like the most gifted sailors in the world. So the fact that they have a tower here and they're guarding it to protect the dragons and the merworms from like trappers and hunters and stuff is fantastic. That's super cool. I thought the dragons sleep in warm places. The dragons, it depends on the type of dragon. But a lot of the dragons in the Warhammer world sleep in colder places because they prefer a colder environment. The Warhammer world used to be much, much, much colder. It used to be much further away from the sun. And most of the planet, except for the equatorial band, was covered in ice. And it's noted that when the planet got moved closer to the sun and it started to warm up, it made the dragons sluggish. It made the dragons like tired, and the environment was not to their preference. So many of them retreated deep beneath the earth to basically wait for things to blow over. But which is funny because you would go, oh, are dragons cold-blooded? And the answer would be apparently not, because they prefer it colder rather. This kind of goes back to what we were discussing with the fimir, right? Where with the fimir, you would think the fimir, being a reptilian species, would be cold-blooded. So they would probably want to live in a warmer environment. But nope, they vastly prefer the cold mires and like the they don't like it frozen. They do like, more of a, not a tropical environment by any means, but a more temperate environment. But like cold rain, not freezing, but cold. So it is very funny to me that the dragons and the fimir and a lot of the primordial species seem to be like, no, we like it cold. And you're like, shouldn't you guys want it to be as hot as possible? And you're like, no. The lizardmen are like that, which is funny. The lizardmen and all their dinosaurs, they're true cold-blooded. So like they prefer, they bask in the sun to absorb heat. And they also get sluggish and get confused and slow down when it gets cold. So like extreme cold is difficult for the lizardmen. But for dragons and fimir, apparently not. Which, I mean, could say that they're not cold-blooded. It could very well mean that they're something else. Which is really interesting. Hey, Hugh, good to see you. I'm excited for everyone to see the High Elves with the colonial oppressors they always are. Yeah, one of the things that I actually really, really like about the High Elves storyline as well so far is that the High Elves are very deliberately not helping the Empire in Bretonnia with the Norskins. So, like, a lot of the lore we're getting talks about how, like, Friedel the Chainmaker came from fucking Suderholm. She comes down from Suderholm and she invades the Wasteland, right? I'm pretty sure it's the Wasteland she invades. I'm gonna double check. Yeah, major battle near the ruined town of Hollum in the northern wasteland. Yeah, okay, so she's up here right now. So, think about this, right? Friedel the Chainmaker leaves here, comes down here through the Sea of Claws, passes the Shrouded Isle where the High Elves have a big old fortress, passes by them, lands on the wasteland, and invades, and the High Elves did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. It's even deliberately called out where it says, however, in recent decades, sightings of the Sea Guard vessels have decreased. The number of Norse and wolf ships passing through the area has been steadily growing. And it's noted in the High Elf book that as far as the elves are concerned, as long as the Norskins are attacking the humans and they're not attacking elf ships, whatever. They don't care. Like, they don't give a shit. Which is like, what a bunch of assholes. Like, what a bunch of jerks. Which I love. I love that the High Elves are really playing up that angle of if it doesn't directly benefit them, yeah, whatever. Hugh, oh, your birthday's in 2 days? Well, happy early birthday if I don't see you then. Did Bretonnia used to be part of the Empire? No, never. Nope, Bretonnia and the Empire were always separate. The people of Bretonnia used to be, their ancestors were the Brittany tribe, and the Brittany tribe used to live up here-ish, closer to modern-day Westerland and Reichland. And they were one of many tribes that lived in what we now know as the Empire. But when Sigmar united all of the different tribes, he went to the Brittany tribe and said, hey, I'm uniting all the tribes. You guys should join with me. And the Brittany were like, yeah, no, fuck that. Like, nope. No, thank you. We're not interested. And Sigmar was like, oh, okay, well, if you're not going to join me, then you have to get the fuck out. So the Brittany end up migrating across Axbite Pass and Grey Lady Pass because Sigmar was going to beat the shit out of them if they didn't. And they move into modern-day Bretonnia, where they fight against like Beastmen and Greenskins for control for many, many years, until the rise of Gilles Le Breton, who finally unifies Bretonnia and kicks out all of the baddies. He chases all the Greenskins back up into the mountains, and he chases all the Beastmen into the deep forest, and he also defeats a bunch of like undead and other nasty shit. Was there ever a good chance for the Empire to conquer Bretonia? Not really. The Empire is pretty fractured at the best of times, and throughout a lot of Bretonia's history, the Empire has not been in a good place. The Empire has been struggling for a while now. The Age of the Three Emperors, actually, just the first breakdown of the Empire happened many hundreds of years ago, like centuries and centuries ago. So, a lot of Bretonia's history, the Empire has been way too fractured to be anything close to a threat. And the Empire is often on the defense. They're normally having to defend themselves from outside invasion, such as from, like, you know, greenskins and vampire counts and beastmen and all that shit. That being said, there are a lot of border fights. Axbite Pass sees a lot of action between Bretonia and the Empire. Padovan is particularly infamous for starting fights with the Empire or the Reichland and vice versa. So like Ubersreich, for instance, has been the site of many battles between the Bretonians and the Empire, and Axbite Pass has changed hands many times. Like, I think by the time of the era of Karl Franz, they just concluded, I think, like, during Karl Franz's reign, the Fourth Peravonian War comes to an end. So by that point, there's been 4 entire conflicts. But like Paravon has lost territory to Reichland and then would push them back and claim Axbite Pass and like Ubersreich, and then they got pushed back. So there's been a lot of like between them. But there's also been incidents where I don't remember what duke it was. I don't remember if it was the Duke of Paravon or if it was one of the other dukes. But Marius Leitdorf of Averland, basically to one of the Bretonian dukes' face, said something along the lines of like his wife looked like a fat horse or something, like to both of their faces. And the Bretonian got so mad that he went back home, got an army, and went to go like sack Averheim. But when he gets to Averheim, instead of like going out to meet him in battle, Marius Leitdorf just like is sitting inside Averheim and has a shitload of Hellblaster volley guns and cannons, and he just shoots the Bretonians. So Bretonians get massacred because they were hoping that the Marius and the Averlanders were going to fight fair, and that is not what happened. But that being said, invading Bretonia sucks. Like, it is very, very hard to invade Bretonia, because the thing you have to remember about Bretonia is that the land itself fights for them. The Lady of the Lake is in the very earth. She's in the land, she's in the river, she's in the mountain, she's in the forest. The Lady of the Lake, her presence is everywhere. And the damsels and the prophetesses are at their most powerful within Bretonia. And her blessing carries a significant amount of strength. Plus, while the Empire has superior technology, like undeniably has superior technology, their magic can definitely be matched by Bretonians, especially when the Bretonians are on the defense. Bretonian wizards are significantly better at dispelling and countering magic than any of their other human counterparts. Because their magic is taught to them by elves. The damsels and the damsels and the prophetesses learn their magic at the feet of the Fey Enchantress and the Fey, which are spirits and or elves, and they learn incredible sorcery. Though granted, most of their magic revolves around manipulating the land and creatures of Bretonia itself to pretty devastating effect. But they are experts at grounding magic. So like if you try and wield magic against them, you're gonna have a bad time. Generally speaking. So the colleges of magic going up against Bretonia is not a fun time. And the biggest thing is that Bretonia has literal fucking super soldiers. The Empire does not have super soldiers. They don't have them. Like, sure, the Empire has priests, which are pretty cool. They're all right. But Bretonia has, like, entire regiments of humans that are literal demigods. They have the full blessing, whatever that entails, but they have a small shiver of their goddess in their bodies. And they are actual demigods. Like, they are warriors that are so powerful they can go toe to toe with the biggest chaos lord, like the big bads of the dark gods, who empower their own followers. And win. Like, they are Bretonian, like, Grail Knights are terrifying. They're terrifying. For the sake of the tabletop game, they dumb them down a lot. They make them like not at all close to what they should be for the sake of, like, balance. But if you, for us, at a lore standpoint, if you were fighting a group of like 16 to 24 Grail Knights, you better be a fucking you better be fucking loaded, have like incredible war machines, significantly outnumber them, have several different warrior priests of different gods with you, and at least 2 or 3 really powerful wizards. And even then, you're probably gonna die. Like, those guys are insane. Oftentimes, the only reason the Empire tends to be good at holding off Bretonia is because Bretonia often fights by rules, especially when they're fighting various when they're fighting other humans, or like they're fighting the Empire. Bretonians will often adhere rather strictly to the laws of chivalry, and they have a code of chivalric laws that they have to follow, that they believe the Bretonians believe that warfare should be honorable, that they believe there is a certain level of respect, decorum, and honor that comes with battle. The Empire could not give less shits. The Empire does not give a damn. And will cheat all day, every day.
100. With how long the elves live, do they have a warped perception of time, and would that affect their ability to treat with humanity? Like how Frieren is in Frieren Beyond the Journey's End?
Yes, they should. Elves 100% should. Now, whether this is represented well by authors is, unfortunately, I would say no. They don't tend to represent it well, but elves should absolutely be that level of detached a lot of the time. Elves have to work very, very, very hard to remain in the zone and not get caught up with things that to them is the blink of an eye, but to us is like a human lifetime. I haven't watched Frieren yet, though it's on my big to-do list. But from everything I've heard about it, which has been a decent little chunk, it sounds like it's one of the first series that is really doing respect to what elves would actually be like, where they would have a very strong disconnect to how time flows around them. Because why rush, right? When you live for thousands and thousands of years, what's a couple decades? I have seen that represented in a dwarf story, interestingly. In the dwarf omnibus, I can't remember which story it is, or what the story is called off the top of my head, but there's I think it might be Honor or Oathkeeper or something like that. But one of the stories is about King Grundedrak of King Grundedrak of Barakvar. And not Barakvar, Zufbar. Jesus Christ. So the king of Zufbar. There is a scene that's really, really cool for him. And it's a scene where there's this whole incident where he goes into the Empire to get vengeance against this human asshole that betrayed him and got his father killed, the previous king. And he ends up meeting that guy's son who betrays his own father to help the dwarves because he doesn't want his people to suffer. And the king is like, that scene is so funny because the dwarfs. Oh yeah, Barrington. What did I say? Oh yes, I said the right king, but the wrong. Yes, King Barrington. Wait, no. Oh boy, is it Barrington's story? I think it's Barrington's story. Hold on, I gotta like refresh my memory. Yeah, Barrington Stoneheart. Yeah, okay. Oh, it's Grudgebearer. The book is Grudgebearer. Good lord. Okay, yeah, so it's Barrington Stoneheart. Whew. Brain. So, Barrington, so that scene is so funny because you see the dwarfs nearly have an aneurysm because from their perspective, this human that is allied with them and has helped them immensely and is doing what's right for his people accomplished it through patricide, which is obviously a giant it's a giant no-no. That's kinslaying is like the worst possible fucking thing you could do in dwarf culture. And this human, from their perspective, very casually kills his father because his father was a bastard, in order to spare his people and help the dwarfs. And that scene is so funny because the dwarfs are just like trying to like make it work. But this one of the scenes afterwards that I love is King Barrington is sitting on his throne in Zufbar, and a human comes in, and King Barrington thinks it's the kid that helped them. He thinks it's the kid that all those years ago helped him out and stuff. And if I recall correctly, Barrington even calls him by that name. And the guy basically responds, "Oh no, I'm not such and such. I'm his like grandson." I can't remember if it's his son or his grandson, but he's like, "Oh no, I'm not so and so. I'm this other guy." And Barrington's like, "Oh yeah," because for Barrington, he has this inner dialogue about how humans just die too fast. And it's a really sad scene that I love a lot because Barrington really, really liked that kid. And Barrington like was friends with him his entire life. So like that kid took over the lands after his father, grew up to a very respectable man, and was like very fond of the dwarf. So he would visit Barrington often. And him and Barrington were like genuine friends. But from Barrington's perspective, he basically blinked and he died, and the kid had already become an old man and died of old age. And he didn't Barrington didn't he forgets sometimes that the kid that friend of his is dead because to him he just passed so quickly. Which is tragic. How long do dwarves live in Warhammer Fantasy? Dwarves, generally speaking, will, like, if they're gonna die of old age, which is rare, most dwarves do not die of old age, unfortunately. But if they're going to die of old age, they usually make it into the ballpark of, like, 400 plus. There are some dwarves that can live significantly longer than that. Like Crag the Grim is like see, Crag the Grim, he's well over 1,000. I'm trying to remember how old he is. I hope Crag the Grim gets made playable for the old world because he's actually like not as horrifically ancient as he used to be. How old are you, Crag? Crag. So in the era of Karl Franz, Crag is 1,620-ish. So he's been around for about 1,600 years. That being said, there's a whole thing in dwarf culture about how dwarfs kind of have a bit of a thing where if a dwarf has an oath that they need to fulfill, so like if there's something that they believe they need to do and they believe they cannot die until that thing is done, they will live longer. So the whole thing with Crag is that Crag the Grim is what's known as a living ancestor. He's super fucking old. But Crag very strongly believes and has an oath that he needs to pass down his wisdom to the next generation. But Crag is kind of an asshole because Rune Lords are all kind of assholes. And Crag, despite the fact that he's been around for 1,600 years, does not believe that he has found a worthy pupil yet. So he's had hundreds and hundreds of students, many of whom have gone on to become very respectable Rune Lords in and of themselves. And Crag very stubbornly believes that none of them are worthy of his secrets yet. And he's basically too stubborn to die until that happens. Hi Sotek, have you heard the Insignificant Plague song? I think you would like it. Hawk says I have heard it, but I don't know what that is. Insignificant Plague song. How old is Astrogoth? We don't know. Astrogoth is ancient. He's very, very ancient. It's vaguely implied that he's been around since maybe Zarnagarum was founded, in which case he's like well over 3,000 years old. But oh, it's the Skaven versus Lizardman rap battle. Oh yes, I have heard that. It's very good. It's fantastic. Great song. But it's not 100% clear when Astrogoth was born. I'm so confused. Aren't Warhammer Fantasy and the Old World the same thing? No. So Warhammer Fantasy was the original tabletop and setting for Warhammer and Games Workshop. It was the OG setting, the very first unique setting made by GW. And it evolved over many, many years until we arrived in 8th edition of Warhammer Fantasy, where we went through an event called the End Times, and the Games Workshop blew it up, and the setting came to an end. But after several years, due to popularity of video games and some other stuff, Games Workshop decided to bring it back. But instead of bringing it back where we left off, because Warhammer Fantasy, much like 40k, didn't really have a progressing timeline. It was a static timeline. So, like, for most of Warhammer Fantasy's history, the year was like 2521 of the Imperial calendar, and we just sat there forever. we just sat there for the longest time. And so when they brought it back, they decided that they wanted to go to a new era, an older era, to explore a different time in the world, instead of just bringing back what's known as now as the era of Karl Franz. So when people are talking about Warhammer Fantasy, they're talking about the era of Karl Franz. If someone says they're talking about Warhammer the Old World, then they're talking about this, which is the new setting that starts roughly 250 years before the era of Karl Franz. So the era of Karl Franz revolves around the early 2500s. Warhammer the Old World starts in 2276 of the Warhammer Fantasy world. So like you're technically correct when you say the Old World is Warhammer Fantasy, but I would say for the sake of not confusing people, I would not call it that. I would call it instead, this is Warhammer the Old World, and the old setting, the era of Karl Franz, is just Warhammer Fantasy. Are certain lords or heroes like Thoric and whatnot still around? Yo, yeah. Thoric Ironbrow's around. Thoric Ironbrow is like 400 something. So, in the old world, he's around. He's still kicking. Have there been wars between Cologne and Marienburg like in Total War? Yes. Though rare. Marienburg is not fun to fight. Marienburg is very difficult to attack because it's mostly like a bunch of islands connected by bridges and stuff, and there's only a singular entrance through the Manonport Sea up here. So you have to go down this really long gulf to get to Marienburg. And it's also surrounded by the marshes on the entire way there. And Marienburg itself is surrounded by a giant marsh. So it's really, really difficult to attack. Because if you go by sea, they're going to see you coming a mile away, and they have a massive army of, like, borderline pirates and mercenaries and all kinds of exotic warriors from all over the world because they have money. They have tons of money. And if you piss them off, they're going to cut you off, and you're going to lose a lot of money. And in more modern times, Marienburg has not actually seceded from the Empire yet, but they will eventually. But Marienburg also has a big alliance with the High Elves of Ulthuan, which means that they have a lot of elves living there, particularly wizards, which makes them an absolute bitch to deal with. Excuse me. I should have muted before I did that. Am I the only one who wants Grimgor to show up? Grimgor would be funny to see. He shouldn't be in the old world yet, though. He should be somewhere much further east. I don't know if they're ever going to talk about what Grimgor was up to, but during this era of the world, Grimgor is either in the Mountains of Morn or he's wandering around the Darklands. But he doesn't... Grimgor doesn't arrive in the old world until, like, 25... I think he shows up somewhere around, like, 2516, 2518. Grimgor doesn't show up in the old world until after Tsar Boris has died. Because when he attacks Kislev, Tsarina Katerin is Tsarina already. And Katerin does not become a Tsarina until very, very late. Tsar Boris lived... A, Katerin is a lot younger than most people realize she is. And B, Tsar Boris did not die until much later than most people think they did. Who leads Marienburg? In the old world, Marienburg is led by Elspeth Magritta VI. In Warhammer Fantasy, Marienburg is led by a meritocracy. So it's ruled by a council of the wealthiest people in the city. Oh god, I can't remember. It starts with a K. The like the super important family, the one that owns the one that is like the most powerful of the rich people families, starts with a K. I can't remember it off the top of my head. Didn't Crag's Master Rune do something? Oh yeah, Crag's Master Rune. Let's see, what is it? I don't know if they wrote down what it does exactly in this. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure it's something like it ignores armor, strength 10, and I think it also did fire damage, along with like a couple of other things. It was a bullshit hammer. It hit like a truck. It's like Van de Kuiper or it's Vanderkuiper, I think, or Vancouver, Van something. But they are like brutally rich, and they're also pretty spooky. What's Bretonia up to in the old world? Bretonia's having a bad time. That's what Bretonia's up to. They have a massive greenskin invasion because there's a Wa coming out of the Grey Mountains led by war boss Spinecracker. They also are having big beastman problems in the Forest of Arden. So the High Elves recently came from the Silent Isle. And from the Silent Isle, they came over to Bordelot and got permission from the Duke of Bordelot, Diandion, the 8th, to go help fight the Beastmen up here. Calcifer, thank you so much for the 28 months. How you doing? Thank you. And there's also Tomb Kings coming. Currently, Cetra's fleet and a completely separate land army are attacking the Border Princes to get revenge on the Bretonians for messing with him and essentially waking him up. Even though he shouldn't have been asleep in the first place, but whatever. But Cetra is currently attacking the Bretonian parts of the Border Princes, and it's likely that after Cetra fights in the Border Princes, he might invade Bretonia itself as well. So Bretonia's kind of having a bad time at the moment. Why is there no Araby? So right now there's no Araby because that's not something Games Workshop wants to do at the moment. I hold out a lot of hope that Games Workshop will do Araby at some point. I have a video on my channel. I can actually post it in the chat. I have a video on my channel that I am personally very, very proud of, where I talk a lot about Araby and what I think should go into it. I will be eternally sad how few views this video has. But if you ever want to check it out, it's there, where I talk about what their roster should be. I talk about the history of Araby, so like I go into the full lore and history of it. I talk about how they should work in Total War, a lot of the like really famous aspects about them, and all the other stuff. Feel free to check it out.
Seen Wolf 11 cheered. X100. Is it possible to walk an army from Tylia or Astalia to Bretonia through the mountains, or do you kind of have to go around?
You can go through the mountains. Like, it wouldn't be easy. It would be very, very hard. There's not an easy, like, direct route that would take you from Talea or Astalia directly to Bretonia. There are ways through, but they would be difficult. Yeah, they would not be easy. In fact, I believe, yeah, it would be here. So Dragon Falls is a Bretonian fortress that guards kind of like the border between Bretonia and Talea, and that I believe is the path that a group of Bretonians are taking to go reinforce Gaston. If I recall correctly, I believe the Bretonians are going down to Dragon Falls, and then they're making their way to this path here, and then they follow this road here into the mountains, to the River of Echo. Or actually, I think they might go down to Old Dwarf Pass, and then I think they cut through Old Dwarf Pass to Thrancio Road, and then they follow that down here, and then march up the Cyprian Road to Lewin Keep. I think that's the path they're taking, and I'd have to go look at the Bretonia book to double check. Does anyone actually care about Araby? I care about Araby! Araby's awesome, dude. Like, Araby in Warhammer Fantasy is genuinely super fucking cool. I hope they do Araby. Like, they have included, like, Arabian settlements with unique designs. So we got like El Hayek and Bel Aliad are marked out as like big cities, and then we also have the Oasis of 1001 Camels, which is marked out as like a minor settlement. And there's also some Arabian tribes on here as well, where you have like you also have El Kalabad is marked out as a minor settlement. But you've got like the Khalid tribes, which are a desert tribe of Araby. You also have the Torjuk tribes, desert raiders, which are obviously people out there. But Araby's fantastic, dude. Araby's got so much fucking cool lore. Have the vampire counts arrived in the old world yet? Yeah, they're vampire counts. The vampire wars already happened. Like, Vlad von Karstein, Manfred von Karstein, and Conrad von Karstein have all already been defeated. Now, whether or not Manfred is dead, I don't know. Hey, Skywalker66, thank you so much for the 5 months. Thank you.
Salter cheered. X100. If Cetra can't go over the mountain, then why not go under it? King Belagar would give him a fine welcome, I'm sure.
Oh, well, sadly, King Belagar isn't there yet. King Belagar is back in Karasakarak at the moment. I wonder if they're gonna move him to Carrick 8 Peaks. Apparently, there is a dwarf garrison in Carrick 8 Peaks right now. So they might have it where Belagar is growing up in Carrick 8 Peaks, but they haven't confirmed that yet. Is that a barrier of monoliths along the border of Nehakara? Yes, these are the columns of the gods. The barrier idols. Though the barrier idols are not supposed to be what these are, really. The barrier idols were originally greenskin stuff, not Tomb King stuff. But there's essentially a bunch of markers, obelisks, to the gods that mark the edge of their territory. So these are basically like they are great idols that seem to mark the lands of the undead. Though it is interesting because this is a big change to what the barrier idols are. If you actually go back to Warhammer Fantasy, the barrier idols were originally built by Savage Orcs. It was a bunch of big, like, Gork and Mork idols that the Savage Orcs built along the southern border of the Badlands, because they believed it would keep the deadens, but they believed it would keep the undead out of the Badlands, so it would prevent them from coming up into the Badlands. Games Workshop has apparently changed it, so now the barrier idols are Tomb King constructions, and they seem to mark the edge of the territory of the Tomb Kings, which is kind of interesting. There's not a whole lot of explanation right now about what exactly they're supposed to do, because Nehakara used to be much, much bigger than this, than its current borders. Hawk, thank you so much for the 5 gift subs. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So I don't know if they're supposed to be... I don't know if they're supposed to be something that the ancient Tomb Kings built. Not the ancient Tomb Kings, the ancient Nehakarans built as like, oh yeah, this is where our territory is. Or if maybe they were built after the Tomb Kings were resurrected by Nagash's ritual. And then the Tomb Kings built them for some reason. But they're definitely Tomb King constructions because they're named after all of the different Tomb King gods. So you've got Tahath, Usirian, Neru, Asaf, Sok, Fakht, Jaf, Ulapt, Kuaf, Sekhmet, Kasar, Petra, Geheb, Bath, and Shapesh. So it's literally just the entire Tomb King pantheon. Well, all the major players of the pantheon. Maybe the Savage Orcs will destroy the Tomb King ones and rebuild their own. That'd be cool. I'd be down for that. That would be really interesting, actually, if the greenskins ended up being enough of a problem for the Tomb Kings that they like smashed a bunch of these down and rebuilt their own. That would be fun. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty excited for the old world. The changes to the setting are fascinating to me. Overall, I like a lot of what's going on. There are like small things that I'm kind of like every once in a while about, but for the most part, I'm pretty pleased. I can't wait for this map to get ridiculously huge. I'm so excited for when they add Grand Cathay onto this map. When they add Grand Cathay, we're going to be able to go all the way east to see what's going on over there. This map is going to be fucking gigantic, and I am so excited. It's going to be really fun. I really hope that GW will flesh out more of Talea and Nestalia. They look so sad now. After seeing how awesomely busy they were with Mad Alfred's maps, the current ones are very pathetic and depressing. So I really hope they consider doing something about that. Speaking of which, I won't say why until tomorrow, but if you're like, oh man, that's kind of an interesting thing he just said, you will really, 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 really want to come to Lorebeards tomorrow, because we're going to have an announcement at the end, or well, not at the end, but probably the start. But at some point during the Lorebeard stream tomorrow, we're going to have a very exciting announcement regarding an episode that'll be coming up on March the 16th. So stay tuned. Any more potential thoughts on what half-orcs could be? The only way I could see half-orcs working at all in this setting, the only way I could see it working, is they would have to be essentially what the Cruel Boys are in Age of Sigmar, where they're like a type of greenskin that's kind of like, it's like, imagine a hobgoblin, but it's an orkier version. So where a hobgoblin is like kind of like a goblin, a hobgoblin is best described as almost an orc-sized goblin, right? So I would imagine the half-orcs could almost be more like goblin-sized orcs. Well, not goblin-sized, but like where a hobgoblin is like the biggest possible goblin, but it's still a goblin. I imagine the half-orc being the smallest possible orc, but it's still an orc. Half-orc's been mentioned. Not in a long while. The half-orcs, so when the old world got announced, Games Workshop brought up things like hobhounds, half-orcs, and centaurs, all of which would be very nice. But that was in their original post, which a lot has happened since then. That was like 4 years ago. So I wouldn't consider it canon to the setting, because they may well have changed their minds. Considering that if you go back to 4 years ago, the first race that was supposed to be released for the old world was going to be Kislev. Kislev was supposed to be the starting faction for the old world, and obviously that did not happen. So things have changed. But we'll have to see. When are the Beastmen going to be announced? Soon. Actually, there's an event coming up. Does anybody know what it is? There's a GW event coming up in like a week or two. I can't remember which one it is, but I suspect they're going to announce either the Wood Elves or the Beastmen at that event. I don't know which one it is. Is it Adepticon? Is Adepticon this late in the year? I don't know why. I thought Adepticon had already happened for some reason. Adepticon! Oh yeah, no, yeah, it's Adepticon. Okay, cool. Yeah, so Adepticon is March 26th through the 30th. Traditionally, Games Workshop does a reveal show for Adepticon. So that'll probably be what that is. Skulls isn't until like May, I think. May or June. But Skulls is at the end of spring. Did Lizardman ever try to fix the Tomb King's problems? No. No, I think the Lizardman would just see the Tomb Kings as a problem. The undead are not part of the Great Plan. As far as the Lizardmen are concerned, if you die, you're supposed to just die. Unless you do bullshit like the Slawn. But like resurrection of the dead is not supposed to be a thing. That is not part of the great plan. What armies do I collect for the old world? I haven't really collected anything for the old world, to be honest. Like, I've got my lizardmen, but I haven't bought any minis. Most of my disposable income right now goes towards books, or saving, because I need to file my taxes, and I'm gonna have to pay a just unholy amount of money for tax season. So I've been too scared to buy anything else because I have to pay my taxes first. So once that's done, but I'm planning on getting Beastmen. If the rumors are true and the Beastmen Arcane Journal has a big Fimir group, a big Fimir expansion, I will get Beastmen. But right now, of the armories that are available, I'm kind of leaning towards Beastmen, depending. The thing for me is that I personally have a very particular standard of how good the minis need to look before I feel comfortable spending money on them. And I really don't like old world minis so far. The vast majority of old world minis they're nostalgia bait, is what I like to call it, where they're really, in my opinion, they're really old, ugly sculpts that cost way too much money, considering that they're like 20 plus years old a lot of the time. And I refuse to pay for that. I just refuse. So I'm waiting for the old, like, the models that are new. All of the new models, I think, look incredible. I think all of the new models look god tier. I think I have yet to see a new model for the old world that I have not loved. But I'm waiting for them to, like, update the ranges. So there's a very good chance I might get into Grand Cathay, because Grand Cathay is going to be entirely new. Like, they can't release a piece of shit old model for Grand Cathay because they don't have any piece of shit old models for Grand Cathay. So there's a good chance I might get into Cathay. But if there's something that is not a big secret is that Forge World made an entire Fimir range. Back during the days of the Monstrous Arcanum and Tarmacon and all that stuff, Forge World made a full Fimir army range. Like, they made a Fimir Matriarch, they made Fimir Soldiers, they made all this stuff, but they never released them all. They released the Fimir Balefiend, and they released the Noble and the Warriors. But they had more, and they didn't release them because Warhammer, the studio got axed with the end time. So the Warhammer Fantasy setting blew up, and any of the models that Forge World was working on didn't get published. So there's been a pretty strong rumor that, which I pray to God is true. I feel like it's not. I can't deeply believe it, but I hope it's true. My big hope is that because they've been re-releasing a lot of Forge World stuff with the Arcane Journals, so I'm really hoping that one of the armies of infamy for the Beasts of Chaos is going to be Fimir, and they're going to have all the old Fimir models re-released. That would make me so happy. I would pick up that army in a heartbeat. Badger 716, does Norska have its own army in the old world? Yes, technically. It's an army of infamy, so it's a sub-faction for the Warriors of Chaos. So if you play Warriors of Chaos, you can run a sub-faction called the Sea Wolves or the Wolves of the Sea, and that's Norska. Which in and of itself is actually very interesting, because there used to be nothing for Norska. But I'm guessing because of their popularity in Total War, Games Workshop decided to throw them a bone, and give them at least a sub-faction. Regarding the removal of Alfred's locations delay and nostalgia by Games Workshop, do you think Andy Law could get the team working on the old world map know that Matt Alfred... Fade, stay tuned. That's all I will say to that. Stay tuned. If you want something, buy it before the tariffs hit. I'm conservative, but toys are on the chopping block. I'm not. Yeah, I'll play it by ear. We'll see what happens. Obviously, if whatever insane bullshit is going on right now ends up making models a lot more expensive, I'm just not gonna buy them. I just won't. I could very easily just get... I have a lot of friends and companions in my area that have very nice 3D printers, and they're very good at what they do. I buy minis to support my local hobby store, but I wouldn't have to if, you know, there are other ways. So if it ends up being like there's like a 20% or some stupid bullshit extra charge on them, then yeah, no, fuck that noise. Fido Flash Flood. Wednesday stream idea. What if, in the style of the Mazda stream, an end times hypothetical focused in and around Cathay, Ogre Kingdom's Koresh, and what would it be like in the theater world? That's an interesting one, I guess. I'll put it as a maybe. I think I'd have to rejig it a bit. Hey, Sadie. What are you doing, big girl? Y'all want to say hi to Sadie, chat? It's the Sadie girl. Look, there she is. It's the girl. It's the girl. What you doing? Hey, Sadie, what's this? Hey, what are you doing? She's so tired. She's like, leave me alone. I'm already tolerating you yelling and being noisy. Good old Sadie. She's tired. Yeah, she's the Sadiosaur. We have the Cloeodon. Now we've got the Sadiosaur. Sure, Jen, I have a legit question. If in 200 years the Warhammer fantasy world starts and there's no fish people in fantasy we know of, how do you think they could add and fit fish people in the old world? Simple. They would just retcon things. Well, okay, sure, Jen, let me answer you legitimately. If in 200 years Warhammer Fantasy starts, but there wasn't a playable Grand Cathay faction, how do you think they could add Grand Cathay to the old world? And the answer is they just do. I would love to see fish people. I feel like Games Workshop considers them too much of a joke, like a fun little Easter egg to include on things. I don't think they take the fishmen seriously. I take the fishmen seriously, but I think that just makes me crazy. All right, my dudes. My goal, according to my schedule, is to be back awake and ready to stream tomorrow morning before Lorebeards to play some Total War, probably to try and finish that goddamn fucking Gorbad Ironclaw campaign. You have a question about the Croxagore? Hit me with it. That's the point of these streams, is for us to just chill and chat. By the way, is this okay? Like, is this fun for y'all? I'm genuinely asking. Like, please don't meme on me here. This is an actual question. Of like, are these fun? Because like, I enjoy doing these, but I feel like they're boring as fuck and nobody wants to watch it. And y'all would just rather me play video games. But I enjoy doing these. What is my preferred Croxagore head? So my favorite Croxagore design that's ever been made is the Blood Bowl 2 Croxagore. But if we're talking about the tabletop minis, it's this one. So the regular Croxagore. I do not the Sotek War Spawn, they're okay. But I prefer these ones. These are fantastic. Like these are absolute S tier. The War Spawned are okay. The Total War ones are garbage, and I hate them, and I hope they die in a fire. I cannot express how much I fucking hate Total War Warhammer Proxigors. Like, genuinely. I genuinely despise them. I hate them so much. These streams are deadass your favorite? Oh, well, that's good to hear. Okay, so, alright, that's good. I really dislike Gorbat star position. They moved Grimgor for a reason, because it sucked. I mean, it's kind of like the Greenskin headquarter, though, right? Like, Blackcrag is like the Orc Fortress. G-Mander, thanks so much for coming to Red Host spawning. Oh, just a quick reminder. Thursday morning, I'm going to be doing an experimental stream. Wait, is it Thursday morning or is it Friday morning? It's, yeah, Thursday. So Thursday morning at 10 a.m. Central Standard Time, I'm going to be doing an experimental stream here on YouTube, but it's members only. So if you're not a YouTube member, you won't be able to get into it. I'm not going to be talking about anything super important. It's an experiment. I'm going to be talking about some stuff, but I'm experimenting with it. I'm seeing how it works from like a streamer's perspective and what it like feels like and stuff. So I'm going to mess around with it, but if you are a YouTube member, make sure to show up to that. And if you're not a member, and you know, you can consider becoming one if you want to watch it, but it's not going to be that big of a deal. It's something I'm messing around with. I'm also going to do next week, I'm going to experiment with a different version of it where I'm going to do one where I put the link out on like Patreon, but I'll also post it in like the Red Host part of the Discord, which is available for people that are YouTube members, Twitch subs, or patrons. So we're gonna mess around with options. It is not a mukbang stream. Please, God, no. I'm already fat enough as it is. Also, yes, if you if you like the stream, please, for the love of God, somebody please hit the like button. I need validation. I have an anxiety disorder. I need validation. Please, God. All right. Anyway, I'm gonna get to bed so I can hopefully be up early tomorrow morning to play some Gorbad Ironclaw and finish that campaign, because that campaign has slowly but surely turned into torture. Because Wood Elves just will not get off my dick, and it's horrible. Do you want to know what a mukbang is? A mukbang is a type of stream where somebody eats. That's literally what it is. It's like, it's mostly, I think it's mostly around, there are people that get pleasure from like the sounds of people eating. But that's what it's just, it's someone streaming themselves eating lots of food. I don't get it, but for some people it works, I guess, but I don't get it. I'm not based enough to understand it. To me, I'm just like, okay, like, I'm gonna go do something else with my day. Trey, thank you for the super chat. What legendary hero would you retroactively add for each of the lore packs? Whoa, my good lord, dude, that's a, hold on. I can do this. Let me pull up list of DLCs for Total War Warhammer. I got this. All right, so for each paid DLC, I would add the following legendary heroes. Okay, for each Lord pack. Okay, so it has to be Lord packs. All right. So for each Lord pack, I'll do race pack as well, just for funsies. I'll throw in race pack as well. So first up, Call of the Beastmen. I would have added Moonclaw. Moonclaw should have been a legendary hero. Moonclaw, who is a alien from Morslib that technically the Beastmen worship as kind of a god. Because he's literally birds from Morslib, which they interpret as like, you know, a literal manifestation of chaos and the gods in its favor and everything. So I would have done Morslib, because even in the original Call of the Beastmen pack, they based a lot of the Beastmen mechanics around Morslib, the whole Chaos Moon meter, so he would have been perfect. The Grim and the Grave. The Grim and the Grave, Helman Gorst really should have been the legendary hero. Let's all be honest. Come on, let's be honest. This is a safe space. Let's be honest with each other here. Gorst should have been the legendary hero. But assuming I can't change anything, I can only add. The legendary hero I would have added would have been Dieter Hellschnitt. Dieter Hellschnitt is the Doom Lord of Middenheim. He's a really, really cool, pretty old necromancer that rides on a manticore. And he likes to eat people's brains. He's very fun. So Dieter Hellschnitt would be the legendary hero I would have added. For the human side, I would have added Matthias Thulman. Matthias Thulman is a witch hunter who has his own omnibus. So he has a trilogy of stories about him, and he's a very, very super badass witch hunter character. So for Volkmar the Grimm's DLC, yeah, I would do the witch hunter legendary hero. That'd be super badass, and it'd give us another Black Library character that has a lot of books and stories and stuff. So cool. For King and the Warlord. King and the Warlord. I mean, the dwarfs are a little tapped right now. There's been a lot of dwarf content lately. Based on what's left, Mo Diddle, I want to be very clear. If it was up to me, I would go back in time, slap whoever decided that Gore should be a legendary lord, and smack them on their elbow with a metal pole until they agreed to make Dieter Hellschnitt the legendary lord and make Helmut Gorst the legendary hero. I would harass them horribly until they made the right decision. Sadly, I cannot go back in time. So all I can do is work with what we have now. And we already have 2 Necromancer legendary lords, which is a lot. Like, that's as many as you should get total for vampire counts, is 2 Necromancers. So we've got Gorst. We can't go back and change it. So I want Dieter Hellschnitt in the game, and I think the only way you're going to get him in the game is he has to be a legendary hero, which I'm fine with. But for dwarfs, for King and the Warlord, I would probably do... I mean, based on who we have left, I'd probably do Joseph Bugman. Joseph Bugman would have made the most sense. And he would have been a really solid character. He would synergize with the units because we got Bugman's Rangers in that DLC. And he would have been a really powerful legendary hero, so I would have done Joseph Bugman. Funny enough, right now, I think Bugman should be a legendary lord. And that Grim Berlichson should be a legendary hero. But I think currently Bugman should be a lord. For balance reasons. Honest to God. Because I think if Bugman does what he should do, if you make him a hero, he's going to be too strong. Because his healing is going to make the dwarfs, like, asinine to deal with. Plus, he brings a new angle as a lord because he's more of a stealth combat range hybrid with a crossbow instead of black powder. So nowadays, I would say he should be a legendary lord. But if you teleported me back in time to King of the Warlord, I would say Bugman would have been an appropriate legendary hero. For the greenskins, for Skarsnik, I would have made his legendary hero Gatilla the Hunter, to keep the goblin theme. So yeah, to maintain the goblin theme, I would have done Gatilla the Hunter, who's a super duper duper badass wolf riding goblin that's just really cool and awesome. Actually, no, never mind. I take it back because I want to use Gatilla for Grom. I'm gonna take it back actually. So I'd pick Duff Skull. So Duff Skull is a character that I've actually been trying to get into the game, not as a legendary hero, but as like a starting hero with a unique trait. Because I don't think we can get him as a legendary hero. But if you teleported me back in time to the King and the Warlord, I would have done Duff Skull. And Duff Skull is Skarsnik's shaman. And Duff Skull is the most powerful Night Goblin shaman there is. Like, flat out. He is by far the most powerful Night Goblin shaman in the setting. And he's Skarsnik's, like, one of his only trustworthy allies. So I would have made him the legendary hero. Though, nowadays, I would prefer Duff Skull to just be the starting hero that Skarsnik gets at the start of his campaign. Where he gets a Night Goblin, kind of like Henry Le Massif. So you get a Night Goblin shaman that has a unique starting trait, and also maybe has, like, a couple extra unique skills. but just looks like a regular one. Realm of the Wood Elves. I'm skipping that because I'm only doing Lord packs, so I'm skipping the races. Next up is the Queen of the Crone. This one's actually pretty easy for me. So actually, well, this one's super easy for me. I would have done Shadowblade as... Oh, I did the Beastman. You're right. Okay, I will do the race packs then. Fine, you got me. Where was I? Wood Elves. For Wood Elves... For the Wood Elves, I would have just done Ariel then, but we got Ariel later. So for the Wood Elves... It's tricky. They don't have a lot of characters left. No. Scarlock the Hunter. Scarlock the Hunter. Easy peasy. Scarlock the Hunter. So Scarlock the Hunter is a super fucking badass archer. He is like, he's the Way Watcher special character, essentially. So Scarlock would be, yeah, easy. Not even a question, Scarlock. Just a super hardcore ranged assassin hero. Scarlock, 100% Scarlock. I'll put it this way. Scarlock is the only character who has canonically killed Morgr at range. Which, if you go back and watch our Morgr Lorebeard stream, you'll appreciate how fucking impossible it is. Scarlock landed a killing blow on Morgr with an arrow, which is insane. Norska. Scylla Anfringrim would have been my pick, but we have Scylla now. So if I had to pick somebody else for Norska, Norska doesn't really have a lot of characters that have like good legendary hero status. There's a lot of characters I could pick that people would be mad at me for suggesting. So whatever. I'm just gonna go ahead. Oh yeah, I guess I could just say Bjorn Bearstruck, couldn't I? Because he's not technically in the game yet. Yeah, so I'll cheat. Bjorn Bearstruck. There we go. I cheated. He's not technically in the game yet, so I'm allowed to use him. Yeah, Bjorn Bearstruck. Yeah, give me my fucking werebear. God, I want him so bad. I want him so bad. I want that bear all up in my guts. So bad. So yeah, Bjorn Bearstruck. Bretonia. Bretonia got a legendary hero with the Green Knight, so skip. I'm only doing this if they didn't get one. Rise of the Tomb Kings. Prince Apophis. Prince Apophis, easy. Not even a question. Don't even have to think about it. Prince Apophis. Fun fact is that Creative Assembly actually wanted, they've said this publicly, but they wanted Prince Apophis to be in the game as a legendary hero, but they couldn't get it to work. His tech was a bit of a struggle. Now I think they could do it because they have figured out much better modeling technology, especially for like swarm type units or like really crazy units like the Kadai Fireborn. So I think they could do him justice now, but at the time they didn't feel that they could. So, but yeah, so for me it would be Prince Apophis. The Queen of the Crone. So for the Dark Elves, Shadowblade. Not even a question, super easy. Shadowblade, K-Knight Assassin, who has been mentioned several times in the Dark Elf storyline for the Vortex campaign. He should have been in the base game because he's in the campaign, but he's not yet. But he's your super hardcore S-tier assassin. So, boom, easy Shadowblade. For the High Elves, there's a part of me, it should be like Corhill or Caradryan. I don't care which one, just one of them. Corhill or Caradryan, it doesn't matter which. They're both as relevant to Ariel or Alariel. I don't think either one of them is more relevant. However, I do have another option that I would have actually loved to have seen, which I can't remember her name off the top of my head. It's like Yinthale or something. But there is a named Handmaiden of the Everqueen who's the captain of the Maiden Guard. So she's like the boss bitch of the main guard, who are the bodyguards of the Everqueen, and she's super cool, and she shows up in a lot of stories in 8th edition. She would have been a really badass legendary hero. Because she's a very cool character. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. It starts with a Y, I'm pretty sure. But she's super duper awesome. Curse of the Vampire Coast. I probably legendary hero. I probably would have done Van Geist. Yeah, I would have done Van Geist as a legendary hero, I think. Van Geist would have been cool. Ethereal, ghost, pirate, melee fighter. That has like a lot of illusions to him throughout the other stuff. I would either do Van Geist or I would do Scretch Half Dead. But Scretch, Yestrana, thank you. That is her name. Yeah, Yestrana. That's the handmaiden. So yeah, I probably would have done Yestrana. For the Vampire Coast, I would probably do Van Geist. I think a lot of people would have loved him. You could have given him like a bounce spell version of Van Geist Revenge, where he summons up his ship to shoot people without needing to use Winds of Magic. So yeah, I think that would work really well. I think people would have fucking loved Van Geist, considering people still don't shut up about him, even though it's been 7 years. Oh god. Prophet and the Warlock. Prophet and the Warlock. For Lizardmen, I would have done... At the time, honest to God, I probably would have done Tic-Tac-Toe, to be honest with you. I probably would have picked Tic-Tac-Toe back during these days. But Tic-Tac-Toe is already in the game. So since we already have Tic-Tac-Toe, I'd probably do Itsy Bitsy or Tichi Huichi. One of the two. They're both pretty much... They're both kind of interchangeable. Did we get... Oh, yeah, you're right. We did get Lord Croak with that. You're right. That is when we got Lord Croak. So never mind. I get to pass. Because that's when we got Lord... Wait, is that when we got Lord Croak? Is that right? If it is, then skip. What about the Skaven? For the Skaven, the only Skaven we're missing is fucking, we're not missing a lot. Well, okay, so we got Gorich already, so I don't have to do that. So, okay, so if we got Lord Croak, so Lord Croak we already got, so cool. Squeal Gnawtooth would be my Skaven pick then. So for Prophet and the Warlock, we do Squeal Gnawtooth, who is the Packmaster legendary hero. Cool, great, awesome. He's somebody, he'll fit. Yeah, that's whatever, it's fine. Hunter and the Beast. For the Empire, I would do... Who are we still missing for the Empire? Probably Luther Huss? Maybe I would switch Luther Huss and Matthias Volman. So maybe I would put Luther Huss with Grim in the Grave. And then Matthias Volman should be here. Sure. Why not? Sure, why not? Yeah. Totally. Oh, my ear. And then for the Lizardmen, because we got Lord Croak with Tehenwin, I would do Itsy Bitsy or Tichi Huichi with Nakai. Which Tichi Huichi is a super badass great crested skink that rides on a horned one. Actually, well, funny enough, in the his original thing, he rode on a cold one, but modern stuff has him riding on a horned one. A horned one would be more interesting. So there you go. So, yeah. Shadow and the Blade. Oh boy. Man, I have kind of run out of characters. What? The only thing left for Dark Elves is fucking what's his face? Oh yeah, how can I forget Chalkox? Derp. Well, don't worry, I've still got Oxiodal coming up. Yeah, so I would have to do Talar's Dreadbringer because he's the only thing left, really. So Talar's Dreadbringer would be fine for Shadow and the Blade. Oh, Corrin Darkhand. You're right. I would do Corrin. I would do Corrin Darkhand. That's right. Yeah, so Corrin Darkhand I would do with Shadow and the Blade. So yeah, Corrin Darkhand. And then for the Skaven are going thin. Well, actually, he hasn't been used yet. So for the Skaven, I would do Screech Vermin King. I would do Screech Vermin King, the greatest of the Vermin Lords, because that's all I really got left. Warden in the Paunch. For the Greenskins, Gatilla to Hunter. So this is where I would use Gatilla, because Grom rides on a wolf chariot, and then you get the wolf riding legendary hero. And then for the High Elves, for this one, I would probably do Corhill. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I don't think it really matters between him and Caradryan, but I think I would go with Corhill. Because I feel like Caradryan is a little too similar to Eltharion. Well, actually, no. Eltharion had the Arcane Phoenix in his DLC. So yeah, no, I'd do Caradryan. Yep. Okay, so I would do Caradryan for Eltharion. Twisted in the Twilight, I get to skip because they both got a legendary hero. We got Ariel and we got Gorich, so skip. Silence in the Fury. For Oxiodal, I would do Chalkox because I haven't done him yet. So Chalkox for Oxiodal, and for Tarix, I would do Slug Tongue. I love Slug Tongue. Slug Tongue is the Beastman embodied, or he's a physical entity, though he comes off more like a spirit. But Slug Tongue is the physical embodiment of Famine. He's known as the Famine Fiend. And he's fucking terrifying. He's super duper spooky. So that'd be great. Is Corhill not a bit similar to Alistair? No, I don't think they're similar at all. The only similarity they have is that they're both from, like, Cracian themed. But Corhill is a bodyguard character who's all about keeping characters alive and protecting them. And he also has a dual wield setup. So Alistair has just a great axe. Corhill has a great axe that he wields with one hand, and then he has another axe he wields in another hand. But he is all about he's a ultimate bodyguard manifestation. He's not him and Alistair are very, very different. Sign of the Emperor, thank you for the super chat. Look forward to return to Final Fantasy 14 this week. Me too. Hopefully you can make progress on 3.1 side content. Also, you could probably do something with Anethra Hellbane or Mengel Manflayer. Yeah, Mengel Manflayer's technically already represented in Total War, because he's one of the rogue armies. I could use him, but he wouldn't be my first choice. I would want to get through like Shadowblade and Corrin Darkhand before I touch anything else. But yeah, those are certainly options. Yeah. Anyway, so that is it for Warhammer 1 and 2 DLCs, Legendary Heroes that I would have thrown in randomly. Because those are random throw-ins. Yeah. Alright. So, thank you all very much for watching. My voice hurts because I'm not used to talking for this long. But I hope y'all had fun. I hope this was enjoyable. I know it was just me yapping at the screen like an idiot the entire time, but hopefully that was okay. So I'm gonna go to bed so I can try and get up at a reasonable hour, and I am not going to play Balatro tonight. That game is the devil. It was made by the fucking devil, and he poured all of his cunning and all of his addictive bullshit into that evil piece of software. Fuck Balatro. I hate that game. It's way too addicting. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. I'm gonna send y'all off on a raid to somewhere on YouTube. If you're watching on, or sorry, on Twitch. If you're watching on YouTube, there's nobody live that I know, really. So I don't know. I don't really. Yeah, I don't know. You're adults. Go find something to watch. Twitch, where are we going? We could see Cinny. We could see Mel. Let's go say hi to Mel. All right. Siam, would you add a Centaur Lord and Ungor hero to the Beastmen and Theatrical last Lord pack for them? Yeah, sure. I'd be down for that. Generics, yeah. I'd be super down for that. I don't know if CA would go for it, because I think in the old world you can have a Centaur hero, but not an Ungor anything. So that might dictate matters, but I don't know. We'd have to see. Anyway, hope you all have a lovely evening, morning, or afternoon, wherever you may be in the world. I will be back tomorrow to hopefully play some Gorbat Ironclaw campaign, and also Lorebeards tomorrow. Build an Everchosen over on the Lawhammer channel, 4 p.m. CST, 10 p.m. BST. Don't miss it. See you guys there. Have a lovely evening, and good night. Where's the button?